king and his men stole the queen from her bed and bound her in her bones. The seas be ours, and by the powers where we will we roam. Yo ho, all hands, hoist the colors high. Heave ho, thieves and beggars, never shall we die. Now some have
What's up, people? What's going on? Got a little time today. I figured we'll do our next episode here with the true histories of the Buccaneers and pirates. Smoke a little weed, talk about some pirates, huh? What's up, Mustang Mike? What's up, David James? Carmel, always good to see you. Mob Brad Hunter. Yeah, for some reason, when I scheduled this show earlier today, I marked it for 10:30. I walked away. I clicked on there around like 8:30 or 9 to set it to subscribers only. And apparently it said 7:15. There was a bunch of people that had come in and had been waiting around and stuff like that. So sorry to anybody that tried to catch this earlier. I went on and I checked and it still said 10:30. I hit edit and I hit save and then it showed up as 10:30 again. So let's say Cornell says no bowl time anymore because the original time you set gave you enough time to smoke a little medicinal plant. Yeah, okay, I got you. Yeah, I don't know what that was about, man. That thing glitched out. That's what I was just talking about. Yeah, I noticed that. So I went in there and again, it said 10:30 when I clicked into the show. I just fucking hit edit and hit save without changing anything and it saved it. So here we are. But yeah, it's going to be a good show tonight. We'll give a little bit of a recap of where we left off because we left off halfway through a chapter. But tonight we will be raiding Panama. So I'm pretty excited about that. It's really cool. Like I've always said through each episode, it's like it really is one of the greatest tales to ever be told, let alone one of the greatest tales of the Brethren of the Coast, the Pirate Kingdom, the Pirates and the Buccaneers all together, certainly of Captain Morgan's career. So it's going to be awesome. Tonight we will be making it through the raiding of Panama. So let me get this thing packed up, as we always do, and get our head right, and then we will get right into the rest of Chapter 12, I believe, of the Pirates of Panama by John Esquemeling. And while I'm packing this thing up, let's talk we'll talk a little bit about like recap stuff, right? Where we left off and all that kind of thing. I think we can manage that while we pack up the bowl. The last chapter started after Captain Morgan and his men took the castle of Chagris, which was an insane endeavor. And remember, it was built literally into the side of a mountain, right? And there was just a stairwell that went all the way up to the top fort. The bottom fort, however, right? Because, like, I guess the castle is what's built into the side of the mountain. So there's a castle and a fort. The castle was in the mountain, but the fort below had just all kinds of cannon, was facing the water, was right there on like the little river you needed to get onto to even access the stairwell that went up to the castle. But they finally took that. They left. This was actually the biggest debacle, I think, of Captain Morgan's entire career, right? He had plenty of food. He had sent out, remember in the previous chapter, even he had sent people out, I think like 300 or 400 pirates just to go and get meat, and then 300 or 400 pirates just to go out and get grain. And they all did amazing, and they brought back all the food. Well, he had, in that chapter also they took St. Catherine, that fort. So they had 2 forts to be part of their escape plan. They manned them, they filled them with food. But when they left the castle of Chagres to move through the Isthmus of Panama, the jungle, on their way to Panama, Captain Morgan made a huge mistake and said, hey, listen, we are going to travel extremely light. We've received word that the Spanish know we're coming, right? Remember, they found out that there was a snitch when they went and took all the grain. One of the people bolted and went and ratted them out. So the governor of Panama had word of them coming, and Captain Morgan knew this and said, listen, we've heard that there's going to be ambushes set up all through the jungle. So we're going to travel light. And whenever we hit one of these ambushes, those people are going to have food. Those people are going to have drinks, right? And there he was just like, well, so we don't need to take a whole lot of food with us. We can just grab food along the way. We can kill things in the jungle, right? Eat fruit and shit like that. But as we found out, as they moved through the jungle, each one of those ambushes was just a setup. It was just like psychological warfare. Whenever the pirates would get there, the Spanish were already gone. And they took all of the food with them. Anything that was edible, they took with them. They scared off all of the animals, right? And they killed a lot of them, but they made sure that they scared off any that they couldn't kill. And they destroyed any edible plant, right? They literally left nothing for them. And they did this 4 or 5 different times at intervals through the Isthmus of Panama, through the jungle there. Well, we don't need to rehash it all. They ended up coming across some grain and then throwing it away because they thought there was going to be food at the next one. But either way, they finally got to a point where they could no longer really take their canoes or their boats, and they were all going to actually have to file through the thickest part of the jungle, right? Remember, they came to a town that was completely empty of people, and Captain Morgan told everybody, listen, nobody leave the walls of this city unless you're going to be with a minimum of 100 men, right? A group of them did anyway to try and go and get food. Everybody was starving. And they got hemmed up with some Indians. And then those Indians went and told the rest of the natives, hey, we've got a lot of activity in this town. So as the pirates started making their way through the jungle, they started running into these Indians. And they weren't really messing with the pirates as much as they were just kind of keeping an eye on them and watching them. But the pirates were so hungry and so threatened by some of them that they continuously were trying to fire on them, trying to catch them. And then they finally came down to a pass in between 2 mountains, and the Indians were on one side, right? The natives were on one side of the pass, basically on one little mountain, and the pirates turned off to go onto the other mountain. What's up, Aegon? Always good to see you, my dude. Yeah, so we have this pass that goes through these mountains, these 2 mountains, right? One side the natives set up, keep an eye on the pirates. The other side the pirates set up, keep an eye on the natives. And that's where we left off last. So they're not far off from Panama now. What's up, Maureen? They are not far off from Panama now. The problem is that they're just in the thickest part of the jungle. It is so fucked up. The elevation is constantly changing. There are rivers upon rivers and creeks upon creeks. When it rains, even, there's flooding and there's new creeks now, right? The insects are completely out of control. The reptiles are completely out of control. They can hear the natives moving around, but like I say, they are in the thickest part of the jungle. But as soon as they come out of this, they're going to be almost there. And don't forget, the most important, I think, as far as like what's coming up, I just want to remind, let's put it that way, as a reminder, because of what's coming up. Captain Morgan left the castle of Chagres with 1,200 men, right? 1,200 pirates. As they've gone through, they left some people with some boats, right? There's been some people that have been injured. They're all starving. They're all literally starving and like crazy, worn out and tired. Even at this point, they've still got a little bit of a ways to go through the jungle, and then down to Panama. So I'm figuring they're gonna have about 1,000 fighting men, like 200, between the people that got left at the canoes when the river ended, to watch those, and then however many that have been like wounded or just totally fucked up, right, and completely unhealthy and unfit for battle, as it were. So I'm going to figure like around 1,000 right now. The governor of Panama, when he sent word to them, he was like taunting them, like, "Come on, bro, I got you, right? Come on over here with that bullshit." He told him, he said, "I have 3,600 men waiting in the open field that stands before Panama." So that's just in front of Panama, right? That's just past the wall. Like, who knows how many soldiers he has inside the wall? Not to mention like all of the people that are fit for battle, right? That just live in Panama, or even are of an age to fight. That most certainly will. But yeah, so 3,600 soldiers, they're going to be in an open field ready for pitched battle. And he told him, he said, "As soon as I see you, it's fucking on, right? We're not going to wait. It's going to be go time, right? It's like, as soon as I see you on site," the governor of Panama told Captain Morgan. And Captain Morgan's going to have 1,000. Probably, right? So it's going to be 1,000 versus 3,600 just to get started. We're going to hop into this in just a moment. Now that we've done our recap and a little run up to, hit this bowl a couple times and get ready. What's up, Sharon? Always good to see you. I hope you're well. What's up, Co-Train? Good to see you. Hope you're well. What's up, Heidi? Yeah, so it's been a wild ride already. We've been through, since the top of this book, we went through one of my favorite tales, which is Rock Brasiliano. Then we went through L'Olonois, who was just a vicious psychopath of a pirate. And that guy met an insane end, being torn to pieces by the natives, literally like torn into pieces and then thrown into the fire. He was literally watching pieces of himself burn. Fucking crazy. Just even in the beginning of this book, learning all about the Buccaneers and where they came from and what Tortuga was like and what it was like to even sail into Tortuga in 1666. All about our author's life, how he ended up, down at the dock, becoming a brethren of the coast, after finally becoming a free man, being, taught a trade by the person that had bought him. The guy could have totally slaved him and kept him for 7 years. He lucked out. But then we found out that, Captain Morgan went about it a very similar way. Like, he was a young man back in England, did not want to be a farmer like his family. A lot of his family was in the military, and they were kind of like well known as being excellent military men. But he wanted, a little bit of adventure. So he hopped on a boat and ended up in Jamaica and went right to work. And when his work was done, he went down to the dock and he joined the Brethren of the Coast and had a lot of success and then became a captain. And then, we've gone through it all from there. It's just like history. But it's all been pretty amazing. All of the land raids that Captain Morgan's been doing throughout the chapters we've been following along with him. And for anybody that is hopping into this episode for the first time, this is a first-hand account. John Esquemeling was there. He was the barber surgeon for Captain Morgan. He wasn't just there with one of the ships or one of the captains. When they left Jamaica and all gathered for this mission at Cow Island at Isla de la Vaca. They left with 37 ships, all these different captains and vice admirals and all this kind of shit. And the guy that wrote this book, this first-hand account that we're reading, he was on Captain Morgan's ship. He was with his crew, throughout all of this. So that makes it even cooler. What's up, TT? Always good to see you. All right. Grab a sip of my drink. Let's get into it. All right. So remember, we just left off. They're all going through the jungle. They're now in the roughest part of the jungle. And they kind of like just ran across a group of natives that are keeping a really close eye on them. They've had a couple of quick skirmishes with them, but for the most part, they're just doing their best to move forward, right? Okay. Here was a wood, and on each side a mountain. The Indians possessed themselves of one side and the pirates of the other. Captain Morgan was persuaded that the Spaniards had placed another ambush there, it lying so conveniently. Hereupon he sent 200 men to search it. The Spaniards and Indians, perceiving the pirates descend the mountain, did so too, as if they designed to attack them. But being got into the wood and out of sight of the pirates, they were seen no more, leaving the passage completely open. What's up, DJ? Always good to see you. What's up, Foolish Flock? About nightfall fell a great rain, which caused the pirates to march the faster and seek for houses to preserve their arms from being wet. But the Indians had set fire to every one of the houses and driven away all of their cattle, so that the pirates, finding neither houses nor food, might be constrained to return. But after diligent search, they did find a few shepherds' huts, but in them nothing to eat. These not holding many men, they placed in them out of every company a small number who kept the arms of the rest. Those who remained in the open field endured much hardship that night, the rain not ceasing until morning. That sucks, man. Next morning, about break of day, being the 9th day of that tedious journey, Captain Morgan marched on while the fresh air of the morning lasted. For the clouds hanging yet over their heads were much more favorable than the scorching rays of the sun, the way being now more difficult than ever before. After 2 hours' march, they discovered about 20 Spaniards who observed their motions. They endeavored to catch some of them, but could not, they suddenly disappearing into the jungle and absconding themselves in local caves among the rocks that were completely unknown to the pirates. At last, ascending a high mountain, they discovered the South Sea. So they could finally see, remember, they came over Atlantic side, now they can see the Pacific. So at last, ascending a high mountain, they discovered the South Sea. This happy sight, as if it were the end of their labors, caused infinite joy among them. Hence they could descry also one ship and 6 boats which were set forth from Panama. Then they came to Vale, where they found much cattle, whereof they killed a good store. I bet. These guys were starving for fucking days. This is day 9. They found some grain like twice, right? They're fucking, they were eating, like, what was it? Like the second day they were eating leather, right? The leather bags that they found was like day 2 or day 3. This is day 9. So yeah, they found a bunch of cattle and they were basically killing them all and eating them. It says that they killed a good store there, while some killed and flayed cows, horses, bulls, and chiefly asses, of which there were most. Others kindled the fires and got wood ready to roast them. Then cutting the flesh into convenient pieces or gobbets, they threw them into the fire, and half carbonated or roasted, they devoured them. So half cooked, they ate them, right? Well, I mean, it's, if you have some beef, it's okay to eat that rare. I don't know about some horse or like some bull or fucking donkey. I don't know if I'm eating that shit raw. You know what I mean? I if I'm being completely honest, like if you handed me a piece of donkey, I'd want that thing like flaming fucking scorched black just to make sure you killed everything. You know, like including the taste. You know what I mean? Like especially like horse too. Like I'm not fucking down with that bullshit. I mean, if I'm starving, I'll eat anything. But I'm just saying, like if we have a choice of whether to eat it raw or not, give me mine like extra well done. For real, man. Yeah, so it says they ate them half roasted. They just completely devoured all of the first, animals that they could kill. See, with such haste and appetite, such was their hunger, as they were more resembling cannibals than Europeans. The blood many times running down their beards to their waists. Wow, so they just freaked out, and they definitely were eating basically raw meat. They had blood all over them. That's crazy. Having satisfied their hunger, Captain Morgan ordered them to continue the march. Well, this is good, right? Because they are getting ready to go to straight up battle, like a pitched battle. Remember, when I say a pitched battle, that means when two sides literally go directly at each other, right? Hand-to-hand combat, two sides facing each other, march right directly into each other. That's a pitched battle. And one of our biggest concerns was not only is it like 1,000 versus 3,600 to start, the pirates have basically been starving and they're fucking weak, right? Yeah, DJ says extra well. You know what I'm talking about, bro. Fuck that. I'm not trying to taste no donkey. You know what I mean? Like, we're going to eat it. We're starving. We're not fucked up. You know what I mean? Nobody would fucking raise the mook over here. Like, we're going to eat it. But yeah, no, you're going to burn that shit. That's real, man. But yeah, so like one of our concerns was they were going to be like super fucking weak, right? Like at least now they've got some food in their stomachs. Hopefully they'll have some energy about them. And morale too. I remember like it was a quote from Napoleon. He said that morale when at war is literally 2/3 importance of everything. Like literally 2/3 of the success when you're dealing with an army or a group of men and you're in charge. It says that he said that morale was like 2/3 of the entire success factor. So yeah, hopefully their stomachs are full, they're feeling healthy, we can get a good battle out of these guys, right? So having satisfied their hunger, Captain Morgan ordered them to continue the march. Here again, he sent before the main body 50 men to take some prisoners if they could find them. For he was much concerned that in 9 days he could not meet one person to inform him of the condition and forces of the Spaniards. See, he was way too dependent on these ambushes, man. He was thinking, they're going to have food and drink. He was thinking, we'll be able to interrogate these guys and find out more. And the Spanish, you got to give it to them, right? I mean, literally, you got to give these guys a fucking Ep.5 from here to there, like time machine shit, right? Because they fucked these guys up, man. The Spanish fucked the pirates up. They fucked them up like psychologically and like completely killed their morale, fucked them all, had them starving to death, which is not, if they would have brought food with them, that would have been solved. But in either case, that scorched earth shit that they did by running all the animals off, making sure that there was no food all along that path. They'd have smoke and stuff. So the pirates would be like, okay, cool. Right. We're definitely going to find like a little village or we're going to find some Spanish. We'll be able to interrogate. And it was all interrogate people. It was just empty every time. Just fuck them up. Yeah. So Captain Morgan says, cool. Now that everybody's fed, 50 of you guys are going to go out in front of us and just like really get a good sprint going and see if you can find some people to bring them. And if you do find some people, bring them back so we can interrogate them, right? He's like, it's been 9 days and we haven't seen a single person. Something's fucked up. He's like, this shit is not regular, right? And he's very curious about obviously like the forces of the Spaniards. Who wouldn't be? If you're getting ready to go to battle against somebody, you'd want to have some intel. So about evening, they discovered about 200 Spaniards who hallooed to the pirates. So they were screaming at them, but they understood not what they said. A little while after, they came in sight of the highest steeple of Panama. They're getting there. This they no sooner discovered, but they showed signs of extreme joy, casting up their hats into the air, leaping and shouting, just as if they had already obtained the victory and accomplished their designs. All their trumpets sounded and drums beat in token. Thus they pitched their camp for that night with general content of the whole army, waiting with impatience for the morning when they intended to attack the city of Panama. This evening appeared 50 horse, who came out of the city on the noise of the drums and trumpets to observe. As it was thought that their motions, they came with almost within musket shot of the army, with a trumpet that sounded marvelously well. Those on horseback yelled aloud to the pirates and threatened them, saying, "We will meet you tomorrow." Having made this menace, they returned to the city, except only 7 or 8 horsemen who hovered thereabout to watch their motions. Immediately after, the city fired and ceased not to play their biggest guns all night long against the camp, but with little or no harm coming to the pirates, whom they could not easily reach at that distance. Now also the 200 Spaniards whom the pirates had seen in the afternoon appeared again, making a show of blocking up the passages that no pirates might escape their hands. But the pirates, though in a manner besieged, instead of fearing their blockades, as soon as they had placed sentinels about their camp, opened their satchels, and with any napkins or plates fell to eating very heartily the pieces of bulls' and horses' flesh, which they had reserved since noon. So these guys were like, fuck you. Now we know how the Spanish gets on them and then runs away, right? We've seen that so many times. The pirates will literally just start walking towards them, right? How many times, especially Captain Morgan and his men, they don't fuck around. If they find out, we've seen it time and time again when they've taken these towns, right? The Spanish are like, we're coming. And this fucking, not only do the pirates not run or get nervous, they're like, cool, we'll meet you there. And they start walking towards them, right? The pirates don't give a fuck. And now the 200 pirates or Spaniards that they had come in contact with before and then disappeared, now that the horses came out and, they're all basically flexing, right? They're coming up to the pirates going, we're going to meet you tomorrow. You guys are going to get fucked up. You just wait and see, right? And they're bringing up all the passages and all the walkways down and making it to where they can see them. And the pirates aren't tripping at all. They literally set up some people to watch them. And then they just started eating, barbecuing up their horse and ass, right? The fucking donkeys. Yeah, they don't give a fuck. They don't give a fuck. Love that about these guys. Right? So after they ate, they laid themselves down to sleep on the grass with great repose and satisfaction, expecting only with impatience the dawning of the next day. So not only did they not give a fuck that the Spanish were right there, right? They went ahead, they fucking ate. They laid down in the grass right there. They went to sleep. They were like, you motherfuckers ain't going to do shit. And they go to sleep dreaming about waking up and killing these motherfuckers, right? Taking all their treasure. These guys are awesome. The 10th day in the morning, they put all of their men in order, and with drums and trumpets sounding, marched directly towards the city. Here we go. Let me get a sip of my drink. All right. But one of the guides desired Captain Morgan not to take the common highway lest they should find it in many ambushes. Captain Morgan took his advice and chose another way through the woods, though very irksome and very difficult. The Spaniards, perceiving the pirates had taken another way they scarce had thought on, were compelled to leave their stops and batteries and come out to meet them. The governor of Panama put his forces in order, consisting of 2 squadrons, 4 regiments of foot, and a huge number of wild bulls, which were driven by a great number of Indians with the help of others. Dude, I love this shit. I can't wait. We're going to keep reading, but just think about that for a minute, okay? So we've got our 1,000-ish pirates, right? They're literally beating drums and sounding off trumpets. They've got banners flying, right? For each crew of pirates, they have their own banner, just like you. This is like fucking Mordor. Think about that, right? If you need to just visualize an old school battle, right? Where each group of people would have their own banner and they'd be flying it. The pirates are off the fucking chain. They've got their own flags and stuff, like their skulls and crossbones and skeletons and family crests and like fire-breathing dragons and all kinds of shit on their banners. They're beating their drums like you'd see like the old school military, right? They don't have flutes like that, right? But they do. They have like sounding off trumpets. It's fucking badass, man. And on the other side, the Spanish, right? So we've got 1,000-ish pirates ready to go. But then the Spanish have 2 squadrons, 4 regiments of foot, and a huge number of wild bulls that are being driven towards the pirates by fucking Indians, right? This is fucking insane. They're driving a giant group of wild bulls towards the fucking pirates right now. The pirates, now upon their march, came to the top of a little hill, whence they had a large prospect of the city and the campaign underneath. Here they discovered the forces of the people of Panama in battle array to be so numerous that they thought that they were surprised with fear. Much doubting the fortune of the day, few or none there were but wished themselves back at home, or at least free from the obligation of that engagement. Wow. Remember, again, man, the governor of Panama told him he was going to have 3,600 soldiers waiting in that field outside the city. So the pirates just came up to the top of this large hill and looked down on the open field and saw how many soldiers were down there and all those bulls and shit. And they were like, oh, fuck, man, we fucked up. I wish I was at home. This is some bullshit. I am not trying to go down there and fuck with these people right there. Like, we're going to die. We're going to fucking die. All that shit. We just walked across the jungle for 10 days for this bullshit. Well, I mean, you're fucked now. You got to have to do it, right? You can't walk back with nothing. You're going to die. So one more time. So they reached the top of this hill. Here they discovered the forces of the people of Panama in battle array to be so numerous that they were surprised with fear, much doubting the fortune of the day. Few or none there were but wished themselves at home, or at least free from the obligation of that engagement. Having been some time wavering in their minds, they at last reflected on the straits they had brought themselves into, and that now they must either fight resolutely or certainly die. For no quarter could be expected from an enemy on whom they had committed so many cruelties. Hereupon they encouraged one another, resolving to conquer or spend the last drop of blood. There's our fucking guys. Here we go. Then they divided themselves into 3 battalions. All right, so the pirates are like, fuck that, right? We have to fight. We have to win or we're going to die. So we're all going to just do this and we will conquer them, or we will spend our last drop of blood trying to do it. Then they split themselves into 3 battalions, sending before 200 buccaneers who were very dexterous at their guns. Here we go. Like, remember, the buccaneers are our snipers, man. These guys are the dead shot, and they're like special forces. Remember, the fucking buccaneers are the old school hunters. For anybody that's been listening from the beginning, you know, anybody that's just catching up, the buccaneers were the original hunters on these Caribbean islands, right? And they do not miss, and they can hide in the trees, in the jungle. They can hide in the grass. They can creep on you. They have done this shit throughout this whole series. So the pirates just split themselves into 3 battalions, and they put 200 of our like special forces buccaneers up front, and they have their rifles ready to go. All right, here we go. Then descending the hill, they marched directly toward the Spaniards, who in a spacious field awaited their coming. As soon as they drew nigh, the Spaniards began to shout out at them, "God save the king," and immediately their horse moved against the pirates. But the fields being full of quags and soft underfoot, they could not wheel about as they desired. The 200 buccaneers who went before, each putting one knee to the ground, began the battle briskly with a volley of shot. The Spaniards defended themselves courageously, doing all they could to disorder the pirates. Their foot endeavored to second the horse, but were constrained by the pirates to leave them. Finding themselves baffled, they attempted to drive the bulls against against them from behind to put them into disorder. But the wild cattle ran away, frightened with the noise of the battle. That shit's awesome. So they started marching towards each other. The Spaniards are shooting at them, and the Buccaneers just dropped to one knee as their horses were galloping towards them and just started sniping fuckers off of their horses, right? And then the guys on foot came in behind them, but the pirates kept shooting those guys too. So they started to try and drive the bulls in behind them, but the bulls ran off because they were scared of all the noise from the gunfire. Insane. Only some few bulls broke through the English companies, and only one tore the colors in pieces, while the Buccaneers shot every one of them dead. Here we go. Buccaneers shot the rest of those fucking bulls dead too. And I bet you they'll eat them. The battle having continued 2 hours, the greatest part of the Spanish horse was now ruined and almost all killed. The rest fled, which the foot seeing, and that they could not remember, we say foot, it means the guy, like the foot soldiers, right? Which the foot seeing, and that they could not possibly prevail, they discharged the shot that they had in their muskets, and throwing them down, fled away. See, I just call, like I told you before, every single time the Spanish do this shit, they end up running. Every time. They talk shit. They come at you, but as soon as they start to lose, they fucking run. They don't try and regroup. They don't try and like get another plan together. They don't do this thing like the pirates do where they're like, okay, no matter what, right? No matter what, we got to do this, right? The Spanish, they just run. And now they're doing it again. So now that the pirates killed all of their horse and the horsemen, the foot soldiers are getting fucked up too. And so the last of them just discharged the shot that they had in their muskets and then threw their guns down and ran. The pirates could not follow them, being too much harassed and wearied with their long journey, many not being able to fly whither they desired. Instead, hid themselves for present among the shrubs of the seaside. But very unfortunately for most of them, being found by the pirates, were instantly killed without any quarter. Well, I mean, you run off and hide in the fucking bushes. Like, if you're going to run, you better keep running, right? That's, I mean, I would think you're in a battle. You need to be running towards the city walls, right? Or like towards more soldiers. But apparently these Spanish just like ran down and hopped in some bushes by the seaside. And the pirates walked down there like, yeah, okay, bro, tag, you're it, right? Like they just went down there. They were fucking dead. Yeah, no quarter, it said. No conversation. Some religious men were brought prisoners before Captain Morgan, but he, being deaf to their cries, commanded them all to be pistoled, which was done. Soon after, they brought a captain to him, which he examined very strictly, particularly wherein consisted the forces of those of Panama. He answered their whole strength consisted in 400 horse, 24 companies of foot soldiers, each of 100 men complete. 60 Indians and some slaves who were to drive 2,000 wild bulls upon the English. That's a lot of bulls, man. Holy shit. And thus, by breaking their files, put them in a total disorder. Besides that, in the city, they had made trenches and raised batteries in several places, in all which they had placed many guns. And that at the entry of the highway leading to the city, they had built a fort mounted with 8 great brass guns defended by 50 men. So the Spanish have got their shit together, but everybody that just came out first ran. So we'll see how this goes, right? We'll see how this goes. Their whole strength is 400 horse, 24 companies of foot. So they have 2,400 foot soldiers, put it that way. And they're broken into groups of 100 is what that says, right? So 400 people on horses, 24 groups of 100 foot soldiers, 60 Indians, and a bunch of slaves who were to drive 2,000 wild bulls upon the English. Okay. And then they built a fort. They've got 50 men out there with a bunch of brass guns. And then inside the city, they have trenches filled with soldiers and more guns. Captain Morgan, having heard this, gave orders instantly to march another way. But first he made a review of his men, whereof he found both killed and wounded a considerable number, and much greater than he had believed. Of the Spaniards were found 600 dead on the spot. Damn. Besides the wounded and prisoners. Damn. So there was 600. They killed 600 Spaniards. And that, plus there was more wounded, and they have even more prisoners, dude. That's insane. The pirates, nothing discouraged, seeing their numbers so diminished, but rather filled with greater pride, perceiving what huge advantage they had obtained against their enemies. Well, yeah, no shit. You guys lost like, what, 50 guys? You killed 600 of theirs, took a bunch more prisoner, and wounded even more. You guys are doing just fine, right? All right. Having rested some time, they prepared to march courageously towards the city, plighting their oaths to one another that they would fight till not a man was left alive. With this courage, they recommenced their march, either to conquer or be conquered, carrying with them all of the prisoners. Yeah, it's do or die time. That's what they're telling each other. It's like, we have no other choice, man. Either we're going to kill these fucking people and take this city, or we're going to die here. So it's on. Kill or be killed, conquer or be conquered. They found much difficulty in their approach to the city, however, for within the town, the Spaniards had placed many great guns, as the man had told them. At several quarters, some charged with small pieces of iron, and others with musket bullets. With all these, they saluted the pirates at their approaching, and gave them full and frequent broadsides, firing at them incessantly, so that unavoidably they lost at every step great numbers of men. But these manifest dangers of their lives, nor the sight of so many as dropped continually at their sides, could deter them from advancing and gaining ground every moment on the enemy. That shit's intense, though. What's up, Honeybee? As the pirates are marching, these pirates that are set up, these Spanish that are set up, are just firing broadsides directly into the packs of pirates as they walk, as they march, and groups of them are just falling down around them. Fucking insane. But nothing could deter them from advancing and gaining ground every moment on the enemy. And though the Spaniards never ceased to fire and act the best they could for their defense, yet they were forced to yield after 3 hours' combat. The pirates, having possessed themselves, killed and destroyed all that attempted in the least to oppose them. Wow. I'm going to read that again. That's intense, man. And the pirates, having possessed themselves, killed and destroyed all that attempted in the least to oppose them. The inhabitants had transported the best of their goods to more remote and occult places, howbeit they found in the city several warehouses well stocked with merchandise, as well silks and cloth and linen, and other things of value. As soon as the first fury of their entrance was over, Captain Morgan assembled his men and commanded them under great penalties not to drink or taste any wine, and the reason he gave for it was because he had intelligence that it was all poisoned by the Spanish. Howbeit, it was thought he gave these prudent orders to prevent the debauchery of his people, which he foresaw would be very great at first after so much hunger sustained by the way, fearing withal lest the Spaniards, seeing them in wine, should rally and falling on the city, use them as inhuman. Right, so they might, okay, so he told all of the pirates, listen, man, don't drink any of the wine, it might be poisoned. But the reason he told them that was because he didn't, number one, was twofold, basically. Number one, he didn't want them to go like completely off the chain. Right? They had just done a 10-day march. They've been starving. They're all fucked up. They just got done with this battle. They killed an insane number of Spanish today, and took huge casualties, right? But he says, I don't want these guys going off the fucking deep end, because things might get fucked up around here. And two, if you're all super fucked up and intoxicated, the Spanish that are left might rally against you and you won't be able to defend yourself, right? And I think that's second. He's right on both accounts, because these pirates and buccaneers are rowdy as fuck, right? They burn towns down for fun as it is. But after 10 days in the jungle and all this like pain and misery and suffering they've been going through, they would have got way fucked up, right? Way fucked up. They probably would have burnt down most of Panama that night. And he's also right, especially about the second part. There were plenty of Spanish still alive. And if everybody's all fucked up and like passing out in the street and shit like that, right, or sleeping until 2 or 3 in the afternoon, they could rally and just kill you while you're passed out, or kill you while you you're so drunk you're blacked out and can't talk. So, actually a smart move. I'm sure they would have got pissed off if they knew he was lying. But it was enough to keep most of them from drinking, I'm sure. What's up, Mandy? Always good to see you. Smoke it if you got it. That's what I'm doing. All right, that was the end of that chapter. We're now heading into the last chapter with Captain Morgan. Heading into our last chapter with Captain Morgan. And then we'll talk about, at the end of this chapter, we'll spend a few minutes talking about, like what happened really with Captain Morgan after this. Because remember, this is all a first-hand account of a barber surgeon that sailed with a lot of different pirates, right? He sailed with, a lot of different pirates. And he was with Captain Morgan all the way through this first raid on Panama. And then he goes on and he does a lot, actually a lot of other things. So this will be our last chapter with Captain Morgan. And at the end of it, I'll give you guys, give everybody a little bit of information on what Captain Morgan did after this, and kind of like where he lived out the rest of his days and how and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, DJ, sounds good, man. We'll smoke out. Whoever's got it, smoke it. I'm taking a little intermission, if you will, in between chapters real quick. But the name of the next chapter is Captain Morgan sends canoes and boats to the south, basically to the Pacific. Remember I told you they say things a little bit. This is a very, very old book. Very, very old book. So Captain Morgan sends canoes and boats to the Pacific. He fires the city of Panama, meaning he sets that motherfucker on fire. Robberies and cruelties committed there by the pirates till their return to the castle of Chagrin. And I think, in the next episode, before we jump into like the next pirate, like I said, at the end of this chapter, before we end this episode, we'll talk a little bit about Captain Morgan, like where he went after this, what he did, where he ended up, and all that kind of thing. But I think in the next episode, at least to start it off, we will look up, or I'll have some pictures ready for everybody. You know what I mean? I'll have some pictures ready for everybody. We'll check out all this stuff, like old Panama. Most of us aren't going to be visiting Panama anytime soon. But the old Panama that fucking Captain Morgan and the pirates burned down is still there. They had to move Panama. Think about that, right? This was one of the biggest cities in this side of the world. And when the pirates were done with this place, it was so fucked up and burnt and just torched and ruined that they had to move the city of Panama. They didn't rebuild. They didn't bother, right? Another thing, and we're going to hear about it, but I just want to kind of like spot this in the beginning. We're going to hear about it as we read through the chapter. There was some of the most beautiful, like hand carved out of rare woods. These houses were like they were all carved intricately, all made with like these woven branches and unbelievable, like pieces of shipwrecks. But they were supposed to be some of the most beautiful houses like anyone had ever seen that were in Panama at this time. Yeah, exactly, Honeybee. Well, I have like a a minute or two intermission while we smoke this bowl real quick, and then we'll hop back into it. No doubt about it. All right. Get my drink. All right. All right. So Captain Morgan, as soon as he had placed necessary guards at several quarters within and without the city, commanded 25 men to seize a great boat which had stuck in the mud of the port for want of water at a low tide. The same day, about noon, he caused fire privately to be set to several great edifices of the city. So it's fucked up. That's fucked up. Captain Morgan was like, hey, he put together like a little crew of guys and said, hey, I want you to go. Don't tell everybody. You know, he says they did this privately. He says, I want you to go set fire to a bunch of different places in the city, right? HB says, did they physically move Panama? No, for real. Yeah, they physically moved Panama. The place that Panama is now is a totally different place than the old Panama. It's like a place people go visit. You can look this up. That's why I said the next episode, I'm going to pull up pictures of all this stuff. We're going to look at pictures of like Isla de la Vaca, the old Nassau. We'll look up pictures in the Isthmus of Panama itself, right? And we'll look at pictures like the old Panama. I'll have pictures of all of it. St. Catherine, you know, all the different places that we've been talking about. Tortuga, you know, we'll just have a good part of the next episode being like all the places we've been through up until now. I think that'll be cool before we move on to the next pirate. All right, cool. Again, yeah, so Captain Morgan, as soon as he had placed necessary guards at several quarters within and without the city, commanded 25 men to seize a great boat which had been stuck in the mud of the port for want of water at low tide. The same day, about noon, he caused fire private. It makes me laugh every time. I don't know why. I guess I have a sick, dark sense of humor. I told you this guy trips me out. The same day, about noon, he caused fire privately to be set to several edifices of the city, nobody knowing who were the authors thereof, much less on what motives Captain Morgan did it, which are unknown to this day. The fire increased so bad that before night the greatest part of the city was in a flame. Captain Morgan pretended that the Spaniards had done it, perceiving that his own people reflected on him for that action. Many of the Spaniards and some of the pirates did what they could, either to quench the flame or by blowing up houses with gunpowder and pulling down others to stop it, but in vain, for in less than half an hour it consumed a whole street. All the houses of the city were built with cedar, very curious and magnificent homes, and richly adorned and intricately woven, especially with hangings and paintings, whereof part were moved. Another great part were consumed by fire. There were in this city, which is the see of a bishop, 8 monasteries, 7 for men and 1 for women, 2 stately churches and 1 hospital. The churches and monasteries were all richly adorned with altarpieces and paintings, much gold and silver and other precious things, all which the ecclesiastics had hidden. Besides which, here were 2,000 houses of magnificent building, the greatest part inhabited by merchants vastly rich. For the rest of us quality and tradesmen, this city contained 5,000 more. So a lot of people in the city, a lot of houses, man. Think about that. Think about that. You know, it says, remember, Panama is the biggest city in this side of the world, like outside of like maybe Havana. Maybe Havana might have had it beat, but I don't think so. But let's run that back. They've got 8 monasteries, 2 stately churches, and 1 hospital. 2,000 houses of magnificent building, the greatest part inhabited by merchants vastly rich. And then for the rest of less quality the houses of the tradesmen, there was another 5,000 homes. So that's 7,000 houses, right, in Panama that these pirates are just going through one by one, picking up whatever the fuck they want and tossing it into a pile, getting ready to have to trek all of that shit across the jungle, right? They've got to go back the way they came. Here were also many stables for the horses and mules that carry the plate of the King of Spain. Remember, that plate is the gold and the silver, right? That's the uncoined, like gold bars, silver bars, right? So it said, here were also many stables for the horses and mules that carry the plate of the King of Spain, as well as private men towards the North Sea. The neighboring fields are full of fertile plantations and pleasant gardens, affording delicious prospects to the inhabitants all year long. The Genoese had in this city a stately house for their trade. This likely was by Captain Morgan burnt to the ground. There was another stately house that was used there for the trade of slaves. Captain Morgan also burned this to the ground. Besides which were building, there were consumed 200 warehouses. Damn. With innumerable sacks of meal lost inside, the fire of which continued for 4 weeks after it had begun. Holy shit. So this fire is ripping through the city. It said in a half hour it took out a whole street, right? Captain Morgan's going around burning down shit that he doesn't like. So he found one stately house that was used for some bullshit. He fucking torched that. He found one that dealt in slaves. He torched that motherfucker and burnt that shit to the ground. Remember, there were a ton, literally a ton of pirates that were runaway slaves, freed slaves maybe at one time. Our author is a freed slave. Captain Morgan was an indentured servant, not the same. He signed a contract, not the same. But our dude almost died, right? This guy that fucking gave this firsthand account. Remember, he was snatched up by the fucking West India Company, French West India Company, put in shackles. Remember, this dude was delivered to Tortuga in 1666 by ship. Remember, they sold this guy to a plantation owner that didn't even feed him, treated him like shit, beat the fucking crap out of him all the time. He got sick and almost died. And then the guy that owned him was like, well, fuck, I don't want to just lose everything, right? If this guy dies, I'm out all of my money. So he sold him to a local fucking surgeon for 100 pieces of 8. The surgeon is where our author lucked the fuck out. That surgeon nursed him back to health and taught him how to be a barber surgeon, and then freed him and said, hey, I'm going to free you. And when you come into some money, or that as soon as you get your hands on the first 100 pieces of 8, that's what you owe me, and we're square, right? It's insane. But yeah, a lot of people, a lot of different colors, whether Indian, black, African descent, Caribbean descent, Hollander, right? Dutch, like our guy here. English people, they were all fucking slaves back then, dude. You were just owned. If you weren't one of the rich people, or like the people that owned stuff, they would literally, if you didn't have a job in England, the police would literally grab you and sell you to a ship. You know what I mean? And then you were just in slavery for the next 7 years, guaranteed. That's usually the length of those contracts. So shit was fucked up. And they didn't fucking like that shit. None of the pirates did. The pirates were the very, very first democracy in this side of the world. Everybody had a vote. People that had jobs or were in senior levels were voted in and voted out. And our dudes did not like shit like that, like slavery and stuff like that. That's what they were like wholly against. They didn't like rules at all in general, right? Most of them had been treated like garbage. So they always freed slaves of all types. When they went on to plantations and shit to steal food, they always told the people there, you can join us or be free, straight up. So yeah, it's just right on the money for Captain Morgan to be walking through Panama and being like, oh, that's the building right there where they sell stuff. Yeah, you can burn that to the ground. Thanks. Appreciate that. Right. So another 200 warehouses also burned to the fucking ground. with innumerable sacks of meal inside, and the fire of which continued for 4 weeks after it had begun. The greatest part of the pirates still encamped without the city, fearing and expecting the Spaniards would come and fight them anew. It being known they much outnumbered the pirates, this made them keep the field to preserve their forces united. Now much diminished by their losses, their wounded, which were many, they then put into one church, which remained standing, the rest being consumed by the fire. I told you, they burnt this place to the fucking ground. Captain Morgan's nuts, though, for setting those first few fires and then blaming it on the Spanish. Nobody knows. It even says, right, our author, right, that was there, John Esquemeling. Remember, this dude wrote this. He survived all this crazy shit, right? He survived all of this crazy shit. But he was there, and he's telling you, he's like, nobody knows why the fuck this guy did this, right? He's like, to this day, when he wrote this, fucking 1674 probably, because he was pirating until 1672, right? So let's just say it was a year or two later that he wrote this shit down. He says, even to this day, nobody knows why that crazy fucker was setting those fires and blaming it on the Spanish, right? Who knows? It's crazy, right? But now the pirates are like, listen, man, we've been here for 4 weeks. Shit is burned down. We've got a bunch of stuff. We've still got a lot of wounded people. We need to keep our shit tight, right? Our numbers were smaller to begin with than that were worth a fuck, right? They're like, now we've lost a lot of people. A lot of people are fucked up around here. We need to be really careful because at any time, more Spanish could show up, right? Remember, they just took the biggest fucking Spanish city around. So they're like, dude, reinforcements could come at any time. We need to keep our shit tight. They often saw whole troops of Spaniards run to and fro. Captain Morgan sent a convoy of 150 men back to the castle of Chagres to carry the news of his victory at Panama. So those guys have a good 9 or 10 days to trade through the fucking jungle again. Hopefully they brought some food with them this time. Those men also often saw whole troops of Spaniards run to and fro in the fields and in the jungle, which made them suspect that they were all rallying somewhere, which they never could have the courage to do. In the afternoon, Captain Morgan re-entered the city with his troops, that everyone might take up their lodgings, which now they could hardly find, few houses having escaped the fire. Out of 7,000 houses, they're having a fucking hard time now to find a place to stay. Unbelievable, man. Then they sought very carefully among the ruins and ashes for utensils or plate or gold that were not quite wasted by the flames. Insane. They're going through the ashes and stuff, like looking through all the things. And that really, they fucked themselves, didn't they? I mean, that was crazy of him to set those fires, dude. That's just nuts, man. Now they're literally like going through, like sifting through ashes, right? They're sifting through ashes, going through ruins, it says, going very carefully going through the ruins and ashes for utensils or plate or gold that were not quite wasted by the flames. And of such they found no small number, especially in wells and cisterns where the Spaniards had hid them. So they're finding a bunch of it at least, and they're finding some of the places where the Spanish tried to hide their shit, like throwing it down a well and stuff like that. And that's going to be the first place you're going to look. Come on, think about that. You don't have to be a pirate at this time, alive at this time to come up with that shit. If you're walking through a city and you're robbing shit and people ran, you're going to be looking in the fucking gutter, right? You're going to be looking in the bushes. You're going to be looking to see if anybody dug a fresh hole anytime later. You're going to be looking down the well, right? Come on. You're going to have to be a little sneakier than that. For real. Okay. Next day, Captain Morgan dispatched away 2 troops of 150 men each. Okay, so 300 guys total, broken into 2 groups. He's dispatching them, stout and well-armed men, to seek for the inhabitants who were escaped into the surrounding jungle. These, having made several excursions up and down the fields, woods, and mountains adjacent, returned after 2 days bringing above 200 prisoners that they found, men, women, and slaves. The same day returned also the boat which Captain Morgan had sent to the South Sea, bringing 3 other boats which they had taken. Fuck yeah, dude! You got to give it these pirates. How many? This is what, the 3rd time Captain Morgan asked a group of his pirates that, like, hey, I need you to do a very specific task for me. I want you to take this boat. I want you to go over here, do this thing, and come back, right? And then the fucking pirates will be like, yeah, bro, we got you. And they leave and they go do the thing, but then they rob a whole bunch of fucking people while they're there. Or like they rob boats and shit on the way there or on the way back. And then they bring back all this extra shit. And they're just like, here you go. We did that thing you asked us to do, but while we were out, we robbed a bunch of motherfuckers, dude. So here, throw this in the pile, right? Love these guys, man. Yeah, so the same day returned also the boat which Captain Morgan had sent to the South Sea, bringing 3 other boats which they had taken. But all these prizes they could willingly have given, and greater labor into the bargain for 1 galleon, which miraculously escaped, rich laden with all the king's plate, jewels, and other precious goods of the best and richest merchants of Panama. Damn. So they said, we got some boats, we stole some shit, but the one boat we really tried to get was this galleon that got away from us, man. He said it was the one, we know it was, from Panama, that everybody, like all the rich people, put all their best shit on. They're like, we know it had to have been, and we fucking couldn't get it, right? So they're bummed out. Also on board were also the religious women of the nunnery who had embarked with them with all of the ornaments of their church, consisting in much gold, plate, and other things of great value. Oh, you believe that? The church? Come on now. The strength of this galleon was inconsiderable, having only 7 guns and 10 or 12 muskets, and very ill provided with food, necessaries, and fresh water, having no more sails than the uppermost of the mainmast. This account the pirates received from someone who had spoken with 7 mariners belonging to the galleon, who came ashore in the cockboat for fresh water. Hence they concluded they might easily have taken it had they given her chase, as they should have done, but they were impeded by following this vastly rich prize by their gluttony and drunkenness, having plentifully debauched themselves with several rich wine. Oh, they fucked up. They fucked up. I would have killed these guys. I'm just saying, right? I'm Captain Morgan, or I'm like one of the head pirates. And these dudes go out, do the thing I asked them to do. But while they're out there, they see this galleon that's filled with like all of the best stuff from Panama that the rich people throw on a ship with the nuns and stuff, and got the fuck out of there. You could have easily have caught it, but you got super fucking drunk and couldn't manage to do. Oh, we're killing you, bro. We're killing you. We're gonna, yeah, you're just gonna be added to the pile of bodies we keep over there. No shit, man. Come on. Hence they concluded they might easily have taken it had they given her chase, as they should have done, but they were impeded from following this vastly rich prize by their gluttony and drunkenness, having plentifully debauched themselves with several rich wines they found ready, choosing rather to satiate their appetites than to lay hold on such huge advantage, since this only prize would have been of far greater value than all they had got so far at Panama and the places thereabout. Damn. That boat alone would have been worth more than everything that they had up to this point. And those guys were too drunk and too fucked up and partying and stuff to go and get it. See, we'd have to shoot those guys, man. Next day, excuse me. Next day, repenting of their negligence, being weary of their vices and debaucheries, they set forth another boat well armed, to pursue with all speed the said galleon, but in vain. The Spaniards who were on board, having had intelligence of their own danger 1 or 2 days before, while the pirates were cruising so near them, whereupon they fled to places more remote and unknown. Right? It's like, that's a long way to put it, but it's like, dude, they had already seen the pirates. They knew you fuckers were around there because you took Panama anyway, right? But then they saw the boats in the Pacific where they knew they weren't supposed to be, obviously looking for them. so that when those pirates fucked up and came home without chasing them, they just hauled ass and hid someplace, right? Man, you have to kill those dudes, man. The pirates found in several ports boats laden with very good merchandise, all of which they took and brought to Panama, where they made an exact relation of all that had passed to Captain Morgan. The prisoners confirmed what the pirates said, adding that they undoubtedly knew where the galleon might then be, but that it was very probable they had been relieved before now from other places. This stirred up Captain Morgan anew to send forth all the boats in the port of Panama to seek this galleon till they could find her. These boats being in all 4, after 8 days cruising to and fro and searching several ports and creeks, lost all hopes of finding her. Hereupon they returned to a couple of different ports and found a reasonable good ship newly come from Payta, laden with cloth, soap, sugar, and biscuit, with 20,000 pieces of 8. This they instantly seized, without the least resistance, and also a boat which was not far off, on which they laid a great part of the merchandise from the ship. With this purchase they returned to Panama, somewhat better satisfied, yet withal much discontented that they could not meet with the galleon. Yeah, no shit, man. What a huge letdown. The boat had all of the best shit in the city. They fucked up by getting fucked up. They should have been paying attention about their fucking business, right? Like, this is not playtime, man. You guys are supposed to be paranoid and looking around, keeping your eye out for the Spanish. You're out there looking for, I mean, I know you're out there doing something for Captain Morgan, but you got to keep your eyes peeled. That Spanish shit, that galleon, just right. Let's put it this way. You guys are all drunk and fucked up, not paying attention. That galleon could have very just as easily been a warship, right? With mad cannon on it and all kinds of sail, right? That's 2 of the things they said. Oh, we saw it, but it didn't have any cannon on it. It barely even had any sail. It was slow as fuck. We could have totally caught that boat. We were just too drunk. Sorry. It's like, well, what if it was the opposite, right? What if it was this huge warship with mad cannon, right? Plenty of sail and lots of people that were really good at chopping up drunk people, right? they're just blackout drunk and can't fucking talk. You know, come on, man. That's literally fucking insane. You'd have to just shoot those guys, I say for the 3rd time. The convoy which Captain Morgan had sent to the castle of Chagres returned much about the same time, bringing with them very good news, for while Captain Morgan was on his journey to Panama, those he had left in the castle of Chagres had sent for 2 boats to cruise. These met with a Spanish ship which they chased within sight of the castle. This being perceived by the pirates in the castle, they put forth Spanish colors to deceive the ship that fled before the boats, and the poor Spaniards, thinking to take refuge under the castle, were caught in a snare and made prisoners. That's pretty funny. They put out a couple of pirate ships to chase this Spanish ship, and then they had already taken a Spanish castle, so they just put the flag up so that the Spanish boat would think they could come there for safety and they could just rob them. It's fucking hilarious, man. All right, let's go down here. Let's skip past some of the description. All right, the cargo on board the said vessel consisted in food and provisions, then with which nothing could be more opportune for the castle, where they began already to want things of this kind. So they were running out of food. The boat had food. They were happy about that. They didn't really get much money. This good luck of those of Chagres caused Captain Morgan to stay longer at Panama, ordering several new excursions into the country. But he was like, well, cool. If you guys are good and you have some food, then we're going to take a little bit longer to try and find some more treasure, right? While we're here, he's like, I know these people have hid shit in the jungle. That boat might be gone, but there's still plenty of people around here waiting for us to leave. And they've got plenty of their own shit on them. So we're just going to keep trying to find them and see if maybe we can find some shit that's been buried around here in a well or something like that, right? All right, let's see. So this good luck of those at Chagres caused Captain Morgan to stay longer at Panama, ordering several new excursions into the country round about. And while the pirates at Panama were upon these expeditions, those at Chagres were busy in piracies on the North Sea. So those guys were just fucking running their scams right around there like we read. And they're on the Atlantic side. Captain Morgan sent forth daily parties of 200 men to make inroads into all of the country round about. And when one party came back, another one went forth, who soon gathered much riches and many prisoners. These being brought into the city, they were put to the most exquisite tortures. Here we go. These guys are fucked up. We're going to get into this part of the mission again. These being brought into the city were put to the most exquisite tortures to make them confess both other people's goods or their own. Here it happened that one poor wretch was found in the house of a person of quality who had put on amidst the confusion a pair of... Oh, okay, so he put on his master's clothes. All right. And had a little silver key hanging out of his shirt, perceiving which the pirates asked him for the cabinet of the said key. His answer was he knew not what was become of it, but that finding those pants in his master's house, he had made bold to wear his clothes. Not being able to get any other answer, they put him on the rack. Fuck. And inhumanly disjointed his arms. Then they twisted a cord about his forehead, which they wrung so hard that his eyes appeared as big as eggs and were ready to fall out of his skull. But with these torments not obtaining any positive answer, they hung him up by the wrists, giving him many blows and stripes under that intolerable pain and posture of body. Afterwards, they cut off his nose and his ears and singed his face with burning straw till he could not speak nor lament his misery any longer. Then, losing all hopes of any confession, they bade a slave run him through, which put an end to his life and to their inhuman... Dude, that shit is fucked up. What's up, Grump? Yeah, see, like, this is the part of the pirate mission where shit gets, like, really out of hand. Every one of them is the same. They run into the city. They war with the people of the city. They win the city. They take everything that's not nailed down. They search around for a while, chill out, and they're, live in their houses and stuff. And then they send people out into the surrounding woods and the jungle where they know these people are hiding, and they bring them back and they torture the fucking shit out of them with the worst, like they're wrapping cords around people's head until their fucking eyes pop out. Like, wow. And burning them and stuff. It's really putting them on the rack. Not good. And they do this to people by the hundreds, you know what I mean? And they do it for weeks until they're positive that they've found all of the money. And then when that's done, and I'm sure it's going to happen here, every single time is the same plan. After they've tortured everyone and they're pretty sure they have all the money, then they tell all the people, listen, we know you've got money still hidden around here. Go and find it, or we're going to burn your city down. Now, Panama, they can't do that. They're going to have to figure out another way to try and twist their arm, so to speak, right? Because normally they say, we'll set your whole town on fire, and then when we're gone, you won't have a place to live. So you guys need to go ahead and get, find where you hid the rest of your money and pay us. Panama's already basically burned to the ground. Now, I guess they could threaten to burn the rest of it, but I don't think it really matters at this point. All right. Captain Morgan, having now been at Panama a full 3 weeks, commanded all things to be prepared for his departure. He ordered every company of men to seek so many beasts of carriage as might convey the spoil to the river where his canoes lay. About this time there was a great rumor that a considerable number of pirates intended to leave Captain Morgan, and that taking a ship then in port, they determined to go and rob on the Pacific till they had got as much as they thought fit, and then return homewards by way of the East Indies. For which purpose they had gathered much food, which they had hid in private places, with sufficient powder, bullets, and all other ammunition. Likewise some great guns that belonged to the town, muskets and other things, wherewith they designed not only to equip their vessel, but to fortify themselves in some island which might serve them for a place of refuge. So the short version of that is a group of these fucking pirates want to break off from Captain Morgan now. They're like, fuck that. We don't want to cross this jungle again. We're good on that. Matter of fact, we kind of like want to see what's happening with the Pacific. There's a lot of Spanish ships out here. Maybe we can just go rob these fuckers and we'll get enough money together and we'll go start our own pirate kingdom out here in the Pacific Islands, right? It's like, you guys are in the Atlantic. Let's maybe set up shop over here in the Pacific. It's not the worst plan, other than they've been hiding things, which is against their code, right? And you could die for that. When we went through I think one long explanation, we went through a second shorter explanation, but how we went through how the pirates equip their ships before they go out a pirating, right? And how they write their articles and what their rules are like, even what their insurance policies are like and stuff like that. If you lose a leg or an arm or a hand. Some of those rules are, if you find something, you can't keep it, right? If you're walking through the town of Panama, for example, right? We were just talking about how these people were literally sifting through ashes, like trying to find every last little piece of gold or silver, right? You can't be doing that and then like find a really nice like gold comb with fucking diamonds on it and be like, you know what? I know somebody that would really like that. I'm going to keep that. You can't do that. If they find out that you do that, you'll not, like, you might be, if they really love you, they might just put you out of the brotherhood, right? It's a possibility. We've seen that, or at least I've seen that in some articles. But for the most part, they just kill you. They fucking kill you. If you keep one thing to yourself, you're not allowed like an extra portion of food. That's not how this works. You're allowed to have as much as you want, but you can't be like deliberately taking more than anybody else, right? And when it comes to treasure and the things that you steal, everyone gets equal shares, man. That's what keeps the Brethren of the Coast alive and democratic and working the way that it does, right? Everybody gets a vote. Everybody gets a vote. You're not allowed to keep any. It all goes into a pile, right? Everybody gets a share of everything. You don't get to just keep things. And these guys have been putting aside cannons and guns and ammunition and food, right? And they used the word hid. So that's the only place I see trouble with this. Outside of that, it seems like, hey man, if you want to split off from here and you don't feel like going back into the Atlantic, we fucking won, man. Right? Panama is literally just burning. It's done, man. We've got all of the stuff that's around here. We're getting ready to leave. If you don't want to go with us and you want to pirate out here in the Pacific, that's cool, right? Who the fuck can tell you any different? But if you've been taking a bunch of shit from us or hiding things from us to get yourself started, that's fucked up. Okay, so it says this plan had certainly taken effect had not Captain Morgan had timely advice of it from one of their comrades. So the plan might have worked if Captain Morgan didn't get tipped off. Hereupon he commanded the mainmast of that ship to be cut down and burnt, with all the other boats in the port. Hereby the intentions of all or most of his companions were totally frustrated. I mean, I don't blame him, dude. And so I said, like, if you've been taking shit, like you've been taking and hiding cannons and fucking guns and ammunition and food and all kind of like money to get yourself started, we got a problem. You're not going anywhere. You know? Then Captain Morgan sent many of the Spaniards into the adjoining fields and country to seek for money to ransom not only themselves but the rest of the prisoners, as likewise the ecclesiastics. There it is. So he can't ransom the town this time. So now he's ransoming the prisoners and the church people. Moreover, he commanded all of the artillery of the town to be nailed and stopped up. At the same time, he sent out a strong company of men to seek for the governor of Panama, of whom intelligence was brought that he had laid several ambushes back along the way from where they had to return. So he's saying that now there's going to be more ambushes on the way through the jungle to get home. And this time they're going to have all of their shit and they actually have to put it into canoes and boats to get it down the river the rest of the way, right? Remember, on the way in, when they left the castle of Chagris, they left in boats and canoes, and they went down the river a long way, and then they had to leave the boats, and they could only take canoes. So they left like 50 people with those boats, and they kept going down the fucking river in their canoes, right, as the water kept getting shallower and narrower. Then finally they hit a spot where they couldn't do that anymore. So on their way out with all this treasure, they're going to have to march through that thickest part, basically up that mountain, number one. They got to go up the fucking mountain on the way out. They have to enter, right, the wall of intense, entangled jungle, the thickest part of the Isthmus of Panama, where you can't even be in a boat or nothing like that. You have to literally traipse through the thickest part of the jungle, cutting your way through it. They have to take all their treasure through that. Then they have to put it in canoes and go down the shallower, narrower river. Then they can finally put it into some of their boats, get down a wider river until they get to the castle of Chagris. There they can rest and divide up their treasure. But they've got a long way to go with a lot of stuff to carry, right? And he's just now ransoming off the prisoners instead of the town. So he said, we're going to just kill your prisoners, right, if you can't pay us the rest. We know you have money hidden out there. Give it to us now, or we're just going to kill all your church people and all the prisoners we've got. Pay us and we'll let them live. All right. Okay. Then he gets word that there's going to be ambushes in the jungle on their way back through. All right. So he sends some people out ahead to go and look and find to see if there was going to be any ambushes. When they returned, they said they didn't fucking see anything. That's the short version of this long ass paragraph with all kinds of old words. They returned soon after, saying they had not found any sign of such ambushes. For confirmation, they brought some prisoners who declared that the said governor had had an intention of making some opposition by the way, but that the men designed to effect it were unwilling to undertake it, so that for want of means he could not put his design in. Okay, so this, it says they grabbed some prisoners. The prisoners told Captain Morgan that the governor of Panama wanted to put the ambushes in place, but his men were all bitch made. That's the short version of that, right? They're tired of getting their asses kicked by the pirates and getting sniped out by buccaneers, right, from the jungle. They're like, we're good on that. And so the governor of Panama was like, well, fuck. So he wasn't able to put together his ambushes, these prisoners are saying. All right. February 24th, 1671, Captain Morgan departed from Panama, or rather from the place where the city of Panama stood. See, these guys knew they ruined this fucking town. Remember I told you they had to move this fucking city. Okay, so we're going to read this one more time just to drive that home. Remember, John Esquemeling was there, and he says, February 27th, 1671, Captain Morgan departed from Panama, or rather from the place where the city of Panama stood, right? So they left from where Panama used to be. Shit's fucked up to say about a city, man. So you guys burnt it to the ground. Burnt it to the ground. All right. Of the spoils whereof he carried with him 175 beasts of carriage. Say that again. He had 175 beasts of burden that were all laden with silver, gold, and other precious things. Beside that, about 600 prisoners. That day they came to a river that passes through a delicious plain, it says, a league from Panama. Here Captain Morgan put all of his forces into good order, so that the prisoners were in the middle, surrounded on all sides with pirates. That would suck. Where nothing else was to be heard but people crying and shrieking and doleful sighs. Of course, dude, come on. The fucking people are being held captive by a bunch of insane people, right? Fucking all these prisoners, there's like 600 of them, and they're completely surrounded by pirates, so that all you can hear was fucking people crying and shrieking and sighing. It says the people the prisoners feared Captain Morgan designed to transport them all into his own country for slaves. Besides, all of those miserable prisoners endured extreme hunger and thirst at that time, which misery Captain Morgan designedly caused them to sustain, to excite them to seek for money to ransom themselves. So he's doing this shit on purpose. He's not going to sell these dudes into slavery. Pirates don't fucking do that, right? This is not the ancient fucking Greeks and Romans over here, right? Alexander would have sold your whole town of 1,000 people into slavery and then just been like, yep, cool, and like kept going, right? Pirates, I told you, they're not down with that shit. So they're letting these people believe that they're going to get sold into slavery. They're letting these people believe that they're going to let them all starve to death and shit like that because they want them to be like, okay, fine, I'll show you where my money is, right? Or I know where some people are and they've got money, right? I'll ransom myself that way. He's trying to get these people to break and talk and come up with some more fucking loot. All right, let's hit the bowl. Fucking crazy people. The pirates are fucking insane, man. I love these stories. But all these different exploits by Captain Morgan that we've read over the last few chapters are just exactly why he's so famous. It's why there's drums named after him, right? There's why Hook, Captain Hook even is basically designed after Captain Henry Morgan, right? The guy's just like your quintessential pirate, and he had some insane runs and huge successes, man. This dude got treasure. He wasn't just your classic, hey guys, let's jump on a boat and sail around and see if we find a prize. He was like, fuck that. We're going to put together like 37 boats with like 2,000 pirates. We're going to march across the jungle and we're going to rob cities, dude, right? They took Maracaibo. They took Puerto de Principe, all leading up. You know, of course, they took other places too. They've taken these forts along the way, all kinds of insane shit that they did. It was just outside the box stuff for these people, and he aligned all of the pirates in the Buccaneer. Like when he was so well known that when he put out the call for this, even like the oldest, saltiest pirates, and then like all the way down to the newest ones that just joined yesterday, right? Just like John Esquemeling did, just like Captain Morgan did, just like so many of these guys did, right? They've served out their time on a farm someplace, or they escaped slavery, or they and they came down to the docks and joined with the Brethren of the Coast. Sometimes these slaves were taken off of ships, right? So the pirates would take a ship, or they would take a town or a city. And again, like I said earlier, they would say, okay, any of you guys want to join us? You can join us. If not, you're free. Doors over there. We killed that guy that owns this place. It's all good. You guys are good, right? So yeah, he's got all these people. There's 600 prisoners surrounded by pirates right now, and he's letting them all believe that they're going to starve to death, or they might get sold into slavery in Jamaica, which is laughable. But he's trying to get them to break and pay, or tell him where some money's at. All right. Many of the women begged Captain Morgan on their knees with infinite sighs and tears to let them return to Panama, there to live with their dear husbands and children in little huts of straw, which they could erect, seeing as that they had no houses. So the rebuilding of the city, damn, that shit is fucked up. They're like, just let me go. I know there's nothing there, right? That's what they're telling Captain Morgan. They're like, we get it, dude. They're crying, freaking out because they want to go back to Panama, but they're like, we get it. There's nothing there. We understand. We will just build houses, fucking tree branches and straw. We'll live in that shit until we can rebuild the town. We know there's nothing left. You got fucking bastards. Right? They're like, you fucking bastards, just let us go. You burned everything. You stole everything. It's done. It's over. Just fucking let us go, right? But his answer was he did not come there to hear people cry and bitch and moan, basically, is what he's saying. I came here to seek money. That's what he said. I did not come here to hear lamentations and cries. I came here to seek money. He says, therefore, you ought to first seek out money wherever it was to be had and bring it to me. Otherwise, I would assure you that I will assuredly transport you all to such places where they cared not to go. So he says, listen, man, I don't really want to listen to you cry. I came here to get money. So figure out a way to get me some money, or I'm going to fucking transport you to all kinds of places that you don't really want to be at. Next day, when the march began, those cries and shrieks were renewed. So it was to have caused compassion in the hardest heart. But Captain Morgan, as a man little given to mercy, was not moved in the least. Damn. So John Esquemeling's like, bro, this shit sucked, right? He says this would have literally caused compassion in the hardest of hearts. He says, but Captain Morgan didn't give a fuck. He said Captain Morgan was a man little given to mercy and was not moved in the least. They marched in the same order as before, one party of the pirates in the van, the prisoners in the middle, and the rest of the pirates in the rear, by whom the miserable Spaniards were at every step punched and thrust in their backs and sides with the blunt end of their arms to make them march faster. All right, let's see. I'm going to skip some of this, talking about some of these religious people and shit like that. All right. Captain Morgan arriving at the town called Cruz on the banks of the river Chagres, he published an order among the prisoners that within 3 days everyone should bring in their ransom under the penalty of being transported to Jamaica. Meanwhile, he gave orders for so much rice and maize to be collected thereabout as was necessary for victualling his ships. Here some of the prisoners were ransomed, but many others could not bring in their money. Hereupon he continued his voyage, leaving the village on the 5th of March, carrying with him all the spoil that he could. All right. So hereupon he continued his voyage, leaving the village on the 5th of March following, carrying with him all of the spoils that he possibly could. Hence he likewise led away some new prisoners, inhabitants there with those in Panama who had not paid their ransom. So he took some of these people, and he said there was a bunch of them that ended up paying, and people that met them there on the river of Chagres. But there's a lot of them that still can't pay, so he fucking loaded them up. He's still bringing these people with him. That's fucking hardcore. However, 2 religious men who had diverted some lady's money were ransomed 3 days later by other persons who had more compassion for them than they had showed for her. Okay. So they stole some lady's money to ransom themselves, basically. About the middle of the way to Chagres, Captain Morgan commanded them to be mustered and caused everyone to be sworn that they had not concealed a single thing. Here we go. This is back to the rules. They know that when they get to the castle of Chagres, they're going to be dividing up this treasure, right? Remember, they had 175 beasts of burden to get across the jungle. They were all carrying heavy loads of gold and jewels and all kinds of crazy shit. And he's telling them now, right? He says, now we're middle of the way to Chagres. He says, this is your, basically telling these people, this is your last fucking chance. He commanded all of the men to be grouped together and caused every one of them to be sworn that they had not concealed a single thing, right? Even not to the value of a sixpence. This done, Captain Morgan, knowing those lewd fellows would not stick to swear falsely for interest, he commanded everyone to be searched very strictly, both in their clothes and in their satchels, and elsewhere. I don't want to know about elsewhere. It says, yeah, that this order might not be ill taken by his companions, he permitted himself also to be searched, even to his very shoes. To this effect, by common consent, one was assigned out of every company to be searchers of the rest. The French pirates that assisted on this expedition disliked this new practice of searching, but being outnumbered by the English, they were forced to submit as well as the rest. The search being over, they re-embarked and arrived at the castle of Chagres on the 9th of March. Here they found all things in good order, excepting that the wounded men whom they had left at their departure, for of these the greatest number were dead of their wounds. That sucks. From Chagres, Captain Morgan sent presently after his arrival a great boat to Portobello, with all the prisoners taken at the Isle of St. Catherine, demanding of them a considerable ransom for the castle. Oh, for the castle of Chagres, where he was. Okay, right. So now he's in the fucking castle of Chagres. All of the prisoners that he has there are the ones he brought with him there originally after they took the fort at St. Catherine. Okay, right. So they took St. Catherine, brought all the prisoners to Chagres, left them there, and then they went and took Panama. Now they're back. So they load up the prisoners, and now they're going to ransom them. This dude is fucking nuts, man. He's not trying to leave like a single gold coin, right? Not like no money on the table kind of a thing. This dude is just like, okay, cool. Remember, we got prisoners there from the other town. So when we get there, we got to remember to ransom them the fuck off. Make sure we get all their money and shake them down before we let them go. And we're going to ransom the castle, right? Because they're going to be in the castle of Chagres now. They're going to say, okay, if you guys want this castle back, you're going to have to pay for this one too. Fucking guy's crazy. He demanded of them a considerable ransom for the castle of Chagres, where he then was, threatening otherwise to completely ruin it. To this, those of Portobello answered that they would not give a farthing towards the ransom of the said castle, and that the English might do with it as they pleased. Hereupon the dividend was made of all of the spoil made in that voyage. Here we go, right? So now they're dividing up all of the treasure. So the Spanish told them, fuck you, we don't care what you do with that fort. We're not paying you any money. Fuck you, do what you want with it. And they were like, okay, cool. And the pirates started splitting up all their treasure, right? It says, hereupon the dividend was made of all of the spoils made in that voyage. Every company and every particular person therein receiving their proportion, or rather what part thereof Captain Morgan pleased to give them. For the rest of his companions, even of his own nation, murmured at his proceedings and told him to his face that he had reserved the best jewels to himself. For they judged it impossible that no greater share should belong to them than 200 pieces of 8 per person. Wow. Out of so many valuable plunders that they had made, which small sum they thought too little for so much labor and such dangers as they had been exposed to. So they're telling this dude to his face, fuck you, bro. There's no way, right? They were like, we took so much shit, right? They were like, dude, we took so much fucking treasure. They started taking treasure right after they left the island, right? They were nailing boats here and there, here and there. They went after towns and villages and stuff. They're just stacking this stuff up. Taking forts, right, that had all kinds of stuff in them. Then they just took Panama, and while that one galleon got away, they still had 175 beasts of, basically call them mules probably, right? 175 mules just totally loaded down with gold and silver and jewels and things that are worth money. And they're saying to his face, they're like, fuck, and you give me $200, right? You give me 200 pieces of 8. They're like, are you completely out of your fucking mind? You obviously hid away a bunch of this treasure and kept a bunch of the jewels for yourself. That shit's crazy, man. Pirate, Captain Morgan's like, yeah, fuck you. What are you going to do about it? Captain Morgan's like, fuck you, bro. I do what I want. I take what I want and I give nothing back. Go fuck yourself. I'm Captain Morgan. Pirate, right? So they tell him, this is fucking way too little money for all the shit that we just went through, right? He says, which small sum they thought too little for so much labor and such dangers as they had been exposed to. But Captain Morgan was deaf to all of this and many other like complaints, having designed to cheat them of what he could. All right, so even Esquemeling saying, Captain Morgan was deaf to all of this and many other like complaints, having designed to cheat them of what he could. So Esquemeling here is saying this dude's cheating them straight. It's basically what he's saying, right? And he's part of Morgan's crew. Like when Morgan takes off out of here, our boy's going to be with him. Right? So he's like, dude, he's obviously determined to cheat them of what he can, right? That's exactly what he says. At last, finding himself obnoxious to many censures of his people and fearing the consequence, he thought it unsafe to stay any longer at Chagris, but ordered the ordnance of the castle to be carried on board of his ship. Then he caused most of the walls to be demolished, the edifices to be burnt, and as many other things ruined as could be done in a short time. This done, he went secretly on board of his own ship without giving any notice to his companions and put out to sea. He just fucked them. He just fucked them hard. Like really fucking hard. This done, he went secretly on board his own ship without giving any notice to the companions and put out to sea, being only followed by 3 or 4 vessels of the whole fleet. These were such as the French pirates believed, as went shares with Captain Morgan in the best part of the spoil, which had been concealed from them in the dividend. The Frenchmen could willingly have revenged themselves on Captain Morgan and his followers, had they been able to encounter him at sea. But they were destitute of all necessaries and had much ado to find sufficient provisions for their voyage to Jamaica, he having left them unprovided for all things. Yep. And then Captain Morgan went back to Jamaica and just fucking sold everything and kept his money and told everybody that eventually made it back to go fuck themselves. And he kept being a pirate. And we'll talk about that. That's the end of that chapter. That's the end of that story, the taking of Panama. That's the end of that major run with Captain Morgan with our guy John Esquemeling. That was the end of his run with him. He went through all of that shit. And then he is honest. He says, listen, man, we fucking dipped. Right? He goes, we literally tore that fucking building down so that they couldn't stay there and turn it into like a fortress or shoot at us. We took all the fucking cannons out of there and we put them on our ship. You know, we burnt most of this motherfucker down. And then we quietly got on the ship in the middle of the night. We had a couple other ships that were just completely filled with treasure. And then one of the ships was filled with dudes that we were friends with, and we hauled ass. That's fucking crazy, man. Yeah. Captain Morgan robbed those motherfuckers, man. Big time. Big time. They took off and they went back to Jamaica. They were just like, well, it's going to take those guys a while to get back, probably. They don't have any food. They don't have any drink. Like, we basically burnt that fucking fort to the ground. Yeah, we're going to go back to Jamaica and chill out. It's pretty crazy, man. But yeah, we'll talk a little bit about here in a minute. I'm going to take like another short intermission here. Grab a smoke. And then after that, we'll talk a little bit about what Captain Morgan did next and kind of like where he ended up. You know, we'll keep it a short version, but we'll run through it at least. You know exactly what he got up to and some of the stuff he ended up going through and where he ended up and all that kind of thing, what he was like. So give me just a moment. I'm going to mute this for a second. All right, there we go. Grab a smoke real quick, and then we'll get back into it a little bit and talk about what happened with Captain Morgan after that. But what a great story, on. And that the taking of Panama is literally insane. It's literally insane. What an incredible, insane mission from beginning to end. From him putting out the word that he was ready to go do something big, and like that insane rush of ships and pirates and buccaneers that came from river. Remember, some of them couldn't even get but they literally walked across the entirety of Hispaniola. Like they couldn't get on a ship, or some of them were just out in the woods hunting and they heard about it and just literally walked the entire breadth of the island to get to the other coast and try to hitch a ride with somebody to Cow Island. Yeah, and then when they were in that bay of Cow Island, right, 37 ships, 2,000 pirates, they still voted. Ship to ship, the vote went until it came back to the great ship where Captain Morgan and the most important captains were, all in one room. And the vote came back that they would go to Panama. But think about that. All the pirates, if you were a member of the Brethren of the Coast and you showed up, you got a vote and it counted. It's amazing how they operated. And then they sat there and they did all the articles, right? And they did all the rules, and they set out the insurance policies, and they set out what the everybody's share was going to be, and you know how many shares the captain got for the ship, and how many shares the surgeon, or our guy John Esquemeling, would get for his box of medicines and things like that. They figured all that out in that bay with all those pirates and ships chilling in the bay. And everyone got excited and got drunk and started firing guns and shooting off all kinds of cannon. And they lit that powder on the great ship. And remember that fucking great ship that Captain Morgan and all that, what was it, 30 or 37 captains? They were all in the front great room, and the powder exploded and the boat exploded. And everybody on that boat died. Remember, it was like 300 people died, and the only people that lived were the captains because they were in the very forward room. And but it says that they got flown into the air and landed in the water. That was a hell of a start to the mission. That's fucking crazy. Yeah, but then they went and took 2 forts, and then traipsed through the jungle for 10 days, starving, went up against 2,000 bulls and 3,600 soldiers and just fucked those dudes up. And then crazy ass Captain Morgan just starts setting fires all around the town, burning down places he doesn't like. And then within weeks, the whole place is just basically burnt to toast. And they were literally sifting through ashes and rubble and ruin, looking for things. They had to move that entire city up the coast. It was just ruined. It was completely fucking ruined. Beyond rebuilding. There was one church left, I think they said, right? They put their wounded in. All those warehouses. There was 7,000 houses, 200 warehouses. Most of that, there was so many houses burned down. So one whole street burned up in a half hour. And said when the pirates got back in there, they could barely find a place to sleep out of all those houses. Yeah. It's unreal to think about. I mean, it's a crazy mission. A crazy mission. And then Captain Morgan just fucked him and took almost all of that stuff. What's up, Cuban B? Always good to see you, bro. Then Captain Morgan stole like half that shit or more, right? Took the greater part. He gave everybody $200 and then fucking dipped. He tore that place apart too, so that they couldn't stay there and fortify themselves against him or shoot at him while he was leaving. It's intense, man. He had it all worked out. He got to that fort, broke everybody off $200 and was like, fuck you. He literally sat there and let them all talk shit to his face. Think about that. This guy was nuts, man. He literally fucking sat there and let these guys talk shit to his face and call him a thief. And he was just like giving him the finger. He was just like, fuck you. What are you going to do? He had his crew, including our guy, John Esquemeling, right? He had his crew with him. Plus another boatload, right? They said they had that other boatload full of fucking dudes that were in on it with them. So probably their crew plus another crew, right? And they filled Captain Morgan's great ship with treasure, plus 2 other boats completely filled with treasure, and they just hauled ass. Great story, man. Great story. An unbelievable mission that really happened, and a first-hand account of it. We're really lucky we have that first-hand account of it, that this guy was literate and wrote all this stuff down. And that he was a good storyteller and kept it all to the point. He told us exactly what happened, right? And exactly why they were doing things. Why this guy was making the decisions he was making, because he was right there with them. All right, give me just a moment to get set back up, and then we will continue. I might have to grab another drink. I've got cotton mouth like a bitch. Hang on one second. Let me get set back up real quick. All right, yeah, I got to grab a drink, so give me just a minute. I'll be right back. Like, imagine hold music or something. It'll only take a minute. Be right back. And we're back. All right. Got a drink. We're set back up. We're good. All right, so let's chat on this for a minute, right? So this was a great version of this story, right? First-hand account. Now, like I mentioned before throughout this series a few times, we have a couple of first-hand accounts from pirates that are authentic, right? They are authentic. This one, John Esquemeling, right? Pirates of Panama. We also have William Dampier, who is an extremely educated guy. He was the first person to go around the world 3 times. He's known as the pirate scientist. I'm not even gonna, we'll get into that in a whole different episode, so I'm not going to like fully describe him and his feats. Just know that he was just crazy intelligent. He wrote his first-hand accounts of piracy as well. You know, normally what made it such a big deal was that this guy was like pretty respectable, and he would travel a lot, and he did a lot of great things for science. He was the first person to describe a lot of things in the world to people, including the flamingo. And every time just a side thing that's kind of funny is like he would eat every animal, like he would taste it and see what it was about, right? And he said that the best part of a flamingo was its tongue. Pretty crazy. But this guy he loved to fucking go pirating. He hung out with the original Buccaneers of Campeche. These guys weren't hunters. These guys were now loggers, like some of these guys, these French. But some of these Buccaneers that were out around Campeche, he worked with them, met them there, and then like hopped on the boats, man. And a lot of great side stories that guy ended up being a part of, you know. Again, we'll get into all that later, but he and John Esquemeling were friends, right? William Dampier was also a barber surgeon on these expeditions. Now, these guys were both, you know, literate, both barber surgeons. They got along really well. And for this battle in Panama, these guys were like shoulder to shoulder through this place. What's it say in the chat? I'm here. I don't see any other messages except my own. It's not your chat. Oh, I don't know. Okay, gotcha. These guys were, like I said, they were close friends. And William Dampier gives another great firsthand account of pirating with a couple of different captains. He was here for the Battle of Panama. He gives his description is fucking amazing. If you enjoyed this description from Captain Morgan's cruise angle and John Esquemeling, like I said, he's a good writer, a good storyteller. But William Dampier like paints pictures when he writes. You know what I mean? He's a very, very talented writer, and his description, coming from a totally different perspective and point of view, from a different crew, you know, under a different banner, is fucking amazing. And that's in this series, we're going to go through that for sure. And I can't wait until we get to the Panama one, because you're going to hear about his buddy, you know, his friend, John Esquemeling. When we get to his story, he talks about him. They also are friends with and talk about the third true and authentic story that we have from a guy named Lionel Wafer, who is also at the Battle of Panama. But his story starts on their way back through the jungle, right? When they're all together and they're going back through the jungle to get to the Castle of Chagres. They already robbed Panama. Now they're going back through the jungle. Lionel Wafer's story starts there because he gets injured on the way back, and he ends up living with the Indians of Darien for a solid year. And I'm telling you, like, again, William Dampier's story weaves through John Esquemeling's story and Lionel Wafer's story. Like, William Dampier is there a year later when Lionel Wafer eventually gets picked back up after being there for a whole year living in the jungle with the Indians of Darien. William Dampier is there. So you read all about that shit from two different perspectives. That's what, like, one of the coolest things, as I've mentioned, in this series. You know, these stories, they intertwine. You get different perspectives on some of these different battles, right, from different people that were there. You get different perspectives on some of the cities that were taken, some of the boats that were taken, some of the missions that they were on. And then you get the really cool added bonus of them talking about one another because they knew each other. It's fucking great. So we'll touch just for a minute. Hang on, give me just a moment to pull something up real quick. Here we go. And we'll talk a little bit about a couple of things. So let me get a sip of my drink. Actually, I got cotton mouth. So Captain Morgan, right? So, like, what happened with him, right? We know John Esquemeling, he was still pirating for another year after this, right? He said that his pirate career ended in 1672. They took Panama and left Panama in March of 1671. That's when they returned to Jamaica. And Esquemeling would have been pirating for another year, and then he would go back to Europe. So what happened with Captain Morgan, right? We know John Esquemeling went to Europe. He wrote a book, right? This book that we have been reading, he did a first-hand account of all of his experience from the moment he left France in 1666 as an indentured servant to the French West Indies Company, all the way through all the captains, all the people that he worked with. He gave us the whole histories on the Buccaneers and everything. Goes back to Europe in 1672 or 1673, writes this book. Captain Morgan reads this book, right? The book, it took a few years because the first version was in Dutch, right? So the first version of John Esquemeling, who they say is a Hollander, his book was originally written in Dutch. It was called like something like Z Rovers, which meant sea rovers, right? It was like Z Rovers, something Z Rovers. Then it was translated into French and then into English. So it took a few years for that to happen. When it became huge, the book. It just became a massive fucking book that everyone was talking about and reading. It caused a huge buzz. It was a big deal even then that there was this first-hand account, because most pirates weren't even literate. They just weren't. Most sailors back then weren't literate. A lot of the population was not literate, in the 1600s. So that they had, the fact that you had this pirate that started off as an indentured servant, right, and worked his way into becoming a member of the Brethren of the Coast, and he was a barber surgeon, and he told this wonderful story, and he sailed with these people that were like famous pirates, especially Captain Morgan. People read this shit, and it was a big deal. And when Captain Morgan read it, he got really pissed off. And he sued him. Imagine this. Now, think about this. Fucking Captain Morgan, Captain Henry Morgan, sued John Esquemeling and said, listen, man, you said some things that I don't always fucking, that I'm not going to agree with. But, really what he said was, I wish you wouldn't have written this book. Like, that's fucked up. Basically, in a short version, he says, I wish you wouldn't have written this book. That was super fucked up in the first place. But saying that, there's obviously some things in this book that I disagree with, but I'm not even going to mention those things. He goes, but there is one thing that I cannot let slide, and I'm going to sue you for until you change it in your fucking book. And that's what he wanted. He didn't want money. Right? Captain Morgan had plenty of money. By this time, he was a fucking massive landowner in Jamaica. Massive fucking landowner in Jamaica. He was governor of Jamaica at this point, right? Remember, I told you this is a few years after. Remember, they did this Panama shit in 1671. John Esquemeling goes home in 1672, right? So that's like basically a year. Captain Morgan's all set up already. And then a few years after this, he finally gets a copy of this book that's in English and reads it and sues him. So this is years later. And a lot's happened, and we're going to talk about what's happened in Captain Morgan's life after this part where we talk about how he sued him. So when he reads the book, he says, listen, man, you basically said that I was I went to the docks and fucking sold myself into slavery. He goes, and that's not what happened, right? Captain Morgan, if you remember me mentioning, came from a family of like farmers. And then he had some uncles that were pretty well-known military guys, right? They were involved in some well-known battles. That stuff, like maybe MR would know, more than I do, or he could look it up and he might find that interesting and know the battles that they were in when he finds it. I don't know a lot about that kind of stuff. But in either case, Captain Morgan had some uncles that were like very, very well-known military guys. One of them got sent to Jamaica like really early on. way before Captain Morgan was like pirating or anything like that, like way before that. Way before even John Esquemeling was in Tortuga, and that was 1666. So like this was like his uncle was there way back, and was involved in some kind of skirmishes or something like that with the Spanish and with the local people that were there that were already kind of like trying to set up like some buccaneer type shit. So Captain Morgan wanted to be associated with that. And he says, you know, I was young when I came here, but I was here because I came, you know, as a volunteer. I like basically went into the military really young, which everybody knew was bullshit, right? Everybody knew that was fucking bullshit. But in the original version, John Esquemeling uses the word Barbados, which meant like kidnapped back then. It meant like somebody literally kidnapped. Remember I told you, like if you were even poor and like didn't have a job on the streets of like old school London, they could just grab you and put you on a fucking boat and make you work on a boat. And you wouldn't see home or port for fucking ever if you even made it home. It was really intense and fucked up. Squads of people that would just look for fucking homeless people or people that they just considered drunks or ne'er-do-wells, and they would grab them and put them on ships. You know, when it happened to kids, they would call it, or like, you know, younger people in general, I shouldn't say maybe kids, like teenagers, they would call it being Barbados. You know, like they would just grab a hold of this person and throw them on a ship, and they would put them in the islands and make them disappear. And that's the word that John Esquemeling originally used. So like in the very first book that he wrote, in the Adventures of the Sea Rovers, right, or Sea Rovers, and even into the French translation and then into the English translation, remember that original printing, he used the word Barbados when he was talking about how Captain Morgan made it to Jamaica in the first place. So everybody knew the military story that Captain Morgan was pushing was bullshit, right? So even in the fucking legal findings, remember I told you he sued him, right? Captain Morgan sued John Esquemeling. Like there was a court hearing, right? There was bullshit over this. But everybody knew he was lying about the military stuff. It was like stolen valor, right? That was like super long time ago, like stolen valor. So the judge, instead of making him write any of that nonsense, just said, listen, tell the real story and don't use the word Barbados, right? So they worked out the deal where he just told the truth, and that's what we read. So the truth is that Captain Morgan, when he was about 14, decided he wanted adventure. And I think that's a fucking awesome story. Forget about that you wanted to be the military kid and, you know, you were just like this awesome dude that was involved in wars. And fuck all that, bro. That was really cool. He decided he didn't want to be a farmer, right? It's literally what it says. He decided he didn't want to be a farmer. One day he was like, fuck it. This is the day I'm going. And he went down to the port and asked about every single ship and where it was going. And when he found one that was going to Jamaica, he put himself into indentured servitude. He said, listen, I will sign a contract that says I will work for so many years in order to pay my passage to Jamaica. And that's exactly what he did. He ended up there. He worked on a farm for a few years. As soon as his time was up, the moment his time was up, he went down to the dock and he joined the Brethren of the Coast. I think that's an amazing story, bro. Don't forget about the military part. And I'm not banging on the military. I'm not saying nothing about that. Of course, you'd be honored to be in the military. But he was just trying to bite in on that family stuff, right? He was just trying to make him like build himself up with like an old school stolen valor type shit. Nobody was buying it. So, but either way, like I said, I think the original story is way cooler, bro. You were a young guy and you were like, dude, that was back in the 1600s, man. There was adventure in the world, right? There was things to explore and shit to take and keep and never give back, right? Good for you, man, for going out and finding your adventure, right? Having the fucking guts and the bravery to go out on your own at 14 like that and just jump on some ship with nobody that's looking out for you, gives a fuck about what happens to you. you know you're going to have to work for a few years, but you also know that you're going to join the fucking pirates come hell or high water. You're going to be a pirate, right? Yeah, and he did well at it, obviously, right? It said within his first few missions, he had made really good friends with everybody. That him and a bunch of other pirates that he was friends with put their money together and bought a ship, and they wanted him to be captain. And it said that, like, right from the start, they were successful and they started to get a really, really good name in Jamaica, until it came to the point where, like, when he put out the word that he was going a pirating, I think it started the first really big one was the Porto de Principe one. And then eventually Portobello, that got even bigger. But each time after, like, he would put out this call that, to the pirates, to the Brother of the Coast, hey, anybody that wants to go pirating, come with me. And they would started coming by the hundreds, until eventually for the Panama one, 2,000 of them showed up. Absolutely incredible, right? So after he's sued, or I mean, what happens when Captain Morgan makes it back to Jamaica, and what's he do, right? Short version. Well, let's see. So it turns out that while they were going through, this whole thing with Panama, a deal had been made between the English and the Spanish, like the crowns, right? They made a deal that everything was going to be cool. They were going to stop warring with each other. They weren't going to fuck with each other's shit. Well, right after that deal was made, Panama gets burnt to the ground, right? That caused problems. Let's see. I'm trying to get down through some of this stuff so I can continue on. Okay, so let's start here. Right, it appeared that a treaty had been signed between England and Spain right before they attacked Panama. So a treaty had been signed between England and Spain, and the attack on Panama had actually taken place at a time of peace between the two countries. Word of the treaty had not reached Morgan in time to stop the attack. To appease the Spanish, an order to arrest Morgan was sent to the governor of Jamaica, who was at first reluctant to arrest his island's most famous resident. However, Morgan was transported to London under arrest, where he remained a prisoner of state charged with piracy. Now, let me give you the in-between. He returns to Jamaica with mad fucking loot. Mad loot. John Esquemeling never worked again a day in his life. He still, at a much later date, decided to go out of pirating again, and that's when he died. Like, I mean, not right away. He had a really good run again the second time, but eventually he died. And we hear that story from a very, 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 very heartbroken William Dampier. He's there when John Esquemeling dies, and it's his friend of fucking years and years and years. You know what I mean? It's his close friend. He's been through some insane pirating shit with this guy. So we hear that story eventually, right? But either way, the pirates that were in Captain Morgan's crew, remember when they left everybody, they tore that fucking castle down at Chagres, and they gave them all $200 and told them to fuck off, right? They left with basically 3 ships filled with treasure, right? There was the great ship that Captain Morgan was on, filled with fucking treasure. The 2 other ships they had filled with treasure. And then the third boat had a crew on it. I'm sure that there was some some things stuffed in there too, right? But either way, they took off with the wealth of Panama that was available to them, right? Sans the galleon that was filled with like the rich people stuff and all this stuff from the church. They still had an insane haul, 175 basically like donkeys covered in gold and silver and jewels, right? And they gave all those other pirates like $200 and told them to kick rocks. They had insane loot when they got back to Jamaica. Nobody in Captain Morgan's crew ever had to fucking work again a day in their life. They were all set, like big time fucking set. They were doing just fine. Captain Morgan, already being insanely famous, right, just bought a lot of land. He bought a lot of land and he had it worked. Sold all kinds of goods and like wine and shit like that, rum, like all kinds of stuff. Either way, he was very, very popular, but he was basically done. He retired. He was like, I'm good, right? Like, I'm fucking set. He was just buying land and houses and chilling out. And he drank a lot. Like, Captain Morgan drank a lot. And as a matter of fact, that's when they list the small number of reasons that probably caused his death. One of them is his drinking, because the guy's just a fucking alcoholic. He's just sauced all the fucking time. But so he's chilling on the island, right? He's doing great. And everybody loves him, including the governor. Dude, remember, when they got there with all that treasure, don't think the governor didn't get a bunch of it, right? And the town didn't prosper and do well. Don't think that for a moment, right? So everything's cool. All of a sudden, the governor of Jamaica gets a warrant from the fucking king, right? That says, hey, I have to I made a deal with the King of Spain. We have a treaty in place. He fucking robbed Panama, burnt that shit to the ground. No one can live there no more, right? Nobody can fucking live in Panama anymore. They have to move the city up the coast. The place is fucking gone. It's toast, right? He goes, the King of Spain is tripping. I really don't want to deal with this fucking guy anymore. You're going to have to put Captain Morgan in chains. Put Henry Morgan in chains, put him on a fucking ship, and bring him to London. The governor's like, man, fuck, I don't want to do that, right? This whole island might flip the fuck out if we arrest Captain Morgan. He's literally the king of the pirates. Honestly, think about that. At that time, Henry Morgan was basically the king of the Brethren of the Coast. He was the fucking guy. So the governor's like, fuck, all right. Hey, I hate to do it, but I'm going to have to ask. I'm not going to fucking put you in handcuffs, right? He's like, fuck that. You're my boy. But if we don't put you on that ship and sail you to fucking England, so they're going to fuck our shit up, man. They're going to come through here with boats. They're going to start arresting people to make an example out of things. They're going to make stuff suck for us. They're going to cut off our trade. You got to do this, man. You're going to have to, he's like, what's going to happen? He's like, you're going to do some time in jail. Boo fucking who? You'll come back. You'll be rich and everything will be fine. Captain Morgan's like, you're right. Now, remember, I'm giving you the fucking, we smoke weed and talk about pirates version of this. The quick rundown. If you want to read about any of this stuff in like historic and fucking professorial detail, and have it sound all crazy like you're in college, that shit's on YouTube. But this version is me baked telling you a story. So the governor just tells Captain Morgan, listen, man, they got a warrant for you. I'm not going to put you in handcuffs. Everything's cool, but you have to go or they're going to fuck our shit up, right? They're going to cut off our trade. They're going to run in here, arrest people. It's not going to be good. Worst case scenario, you do a little bit of time in jail. Don't cry about it. Everything's going to be fine. So Captain Morgan says, you're right, let's go. And he gets on the boat. He goes to England. When he gets to England, he's put in the tower, but he's put in like a nice apartment, right? The fucking king has him like set up. He's in like a nice apartment. He's comfortable. He's got like the best food, the best drink. He's chilling. He's got entertainment. He's allowed to like go walk outside in like the courtyard of the Tower of London or whatever. You know, I'm not a specialist in this place, but this is how the story goes. Like he was allowed to walk outside and have his freedom. He's there for a while, right? Nobody really says anything to him. He knows he's charged with piracy, but nobody's fucking with him, right? Like nobody's giving him a hard time. Nobody's threatening him with shit. Nobody's giving him a court date. Nobody's brought him in front of a judge. They just set him up in this really nice like apartment. He had a butler, like cook, all that shit. He was set, dude. He had everything he fucking, and if he made requests, they were, you know, given to him. So he's there. We'll call it for months. I honestly don't remember how, but it was months. It was a long time. You know, let's just call it for shits and giggles. For all intents, we'll call it like 5 or 6 months, right? He's in this apartment. He doesn't know what the fuck is going on. All he knows is that the king has him under arrest for piracy. That's all he knows. One day, out of nowhere, people come and grab him. They fucking put him in handcuffs. They lead him out of the apartment and they put him in a carriage and start riding his ass down the street. He's like, oh, fuck, man. Here we go, right? Here we go. There is fuckery afoot, right? I am in chains. This is not good. You know, this is like basically the first time he's even seen like cops, right? Since he got off the boat. And this is how he tells the story, right? I mean, when he's in that carriage, he's like, fuck, dude. He's like, I guess here we go, right? This is the fuckery. I'm in handcuffs. This can't be good. So they bring him to the fucking palace. And he's thinking, there's no way, right? I'm supposed to be at a courthouse or in front of a judge. He's thinking, like, there's no way. Like, who am I going to see at the palace? You know what I mean? Who the fuck at a palace wants to see me? They bring him into this beautiful, like, little grotto and take his chains off. And when they turn him around to face the table, it's the fucking King of England. It's literally the king. Literally the King of England. And the King of England stands up and smiles and starts laughing and gives Captain Morgan a big hug and tells him how much he loves him and fuck the King of Spain and shit like that. He was like, bro, when you burned that place to the ground, I was like, yes. He was like, fuck the King of Spain. He was like, dude, you're awesome. That's what the King of Spain starts telling Captain Morgan. He's like, bro, you are fucking awesome. I love you, dude. He's like, you are the greatest thing ever. He's like, do you know how much you piss off the Spanish and how much that makes me smile? He's like, you fucking drive these people mad. He's like, they want you dead. He's like, they want me to kill you. Right now, I'm supposed to be killing you. As far as he knows, you know, you've been in England for a while in chains, suffering in a fucking dungeon. He goes, you're supposed to have been in a dungeon, by the way. You're welcome. He goes, and I'm supposed to kill you here sometime like soon, recently, right? He's like, you're supposed to be dead. He goes, but I'm going to tell you what, man. He's like, first of all, you hungry? You want some food? You know, he's like, let's eat. Let's have lunch together. So they fucking have lunch together. Captain Morgan with the King of England. Absolutely insane. And the King of England goes, well, listen, bro, this is what we're going to do. He goes, I'm going to fire the governor in Jamaica. He's like, I have no choice. He goes, that was part of my deal with the king. He goes, I got to honor some of this stuff, right? He goes, I'm not going to kill you. He goes, I'm obviously not going to kill you. He's like, and honestly, what I'm going to do is I'm really going to piss. He goes, I'm going to piss off the King of Spain when I do this. He goes, but it's really going to be awesome. And he's like, you know, you are, for all intents, like the king of the pirates, right? Throughout the Caribbean. He says, it's not just Jamaica. You know, he goes, we hear the tales, we hear the stories, we arrest people sometimes. You know, he says, you are the king of the pirates in the Caribbean, period, the end. He says, you've already got a huge base in Jamaica, in Port Royal. You've got a huge base there, but your influence stretches across the island. Because all of the pirates pay attention to what you have to say and they listen to you. He says, so the Spanish are going to, he goes, those people just talk shit. He goes, they continue to do whatever the fuck they want. They're constantly, see, part of what pissed off the King of England at the time was like how antichrist acting the Spanish were when it came to like how they treated native populations and enslaved them and made them like access all these gold and jewels and stuff. But outside of that, it pissed them off that they were trying to keep it all to themselves. That like the Pope used his magic stick and said, this half of the globe is yours and nobody else can have it. The King of England was like, yeah, I'm not listening to that bullshit. Neither are the Dutch, neither are the French. He's like, nobody's trying to hear that shit. You don't get to just give somebody fucking half of Earth. That's not how this works, right? He's like, so listen, I'm going to have these treaties with the king every once in a while to kind of keep things cool politically. He goes, but in reality, they're going to keep running this fucking treasure, right? They're going to keep fighting with everybody that wants to have land. They're going to keep fucking with everybody that wants to have their piece of the new world. He goes, and I'm not going to allow that. He goes, and this is what we're going to do. I am going to fire the fucking governor of Jamaica. He goes, but I'm going to make you the new governor of Jamaica. He goes, that's going to piss them the fuck off and make me laugh, right? He's like, that's going to make me have a great day. He goes, but you, I'll tell them, can control the pirates and like keep things tamped down without things exploding. You know what I mean? Like they won't just get every fucking ship robbed all of the time. They won't get like every galleon chased like every time, you know. Every time a galleon wrecks and spills treasure on a beach, you know, the pirates won't fucking automatically run up on it and grab it. He goes, I'll just tell them that you will be able to control them. But they'll also know that I will have a surgical tool at my fingertips and they won't fuck around. You know, he says, it'll be our way of tamping it down. He's like, you will be my way of tamping down his behavior. You know, and I'm going to let you live if you do that. And dude, he was like, fuck yeah, bro. I will totally be the fucking governor of Jamaica. I don't get to die. You've kept me in this beautiful apartment instead of a dungeon. You didn't kill me. You fed me lunch. You gave me a hug. The fucking King of England gave me a hug, right? Blackbeard came later, Triple X. Blackbeard came later. And we're going to get into those stories too. Yeah, we've got well, hang on, let me finish this. So, yeah, Captain Morgan was like, fuck yeah, I will 100% be the governor of Jamaica, right? And I will do all of those things. He's like, but, you know, we're going to be like full-blown pirating, right? He's like, we're not going to be treating this like, he told the king to his face, like, we're, you know, these guys are not going to play your privateering game. That's not how this is going to work. Like, you know, he's like, that's ancient days kind of shit. You know, he says, you might try that again in the future, which they did. But not with these guys in Jamaica, not these old salty buccaneers and OG pirates. Those guys never fucked with the law. They would like, they were like, fuck you. We don't do privateer. We just rob shit. We kill shit. Right. And that's what Captain Morgan was telling him, was like, you know, that shit might've worked with a different kind of people. He's like, but these dudes, they're not going to play that bullshit at all. It's never going to happen. He's like, so if you make me governor, knowing that I'm basically the king of the pirates, he's like, understand that this is, you are crowning me officially the king of the fucking pirates. That's what he tells him. He's like, you know, you call me the king of the pirates, but if you make this move, you're literally like crowning me the king of England. You are crowning me the king of the pirates. That's how people are going to see this shit on both sides, right? He's like, your fucking Spanish buddies are going to see it that way, and all the people on that island are going to see it that way. He goes, and they are going to go a pirating. Don't get it fucking twisted. And the king said, good, fuck the Spanish. He's like, but try and keep it. He's like, don't let, he's like, this is what I'm talking about, tamping it down. This is where the king's real intention came, right? Captain Morgan was slick, bro. He knew exactly how this was going to go. He knew what the fucking king was at. And the king says, listen, just keep it to the Spanish, right? He goes, leave all English shipping alone, right? He goes, this is what I'm talking about when I tell you I want you to tamp it down. What he's really trying to do is control him to make sure that English shipping is safe. Spanish shipping gets diminished, right? He'll probably overlook if anything happens to like French and Dutch or like Portuguese ships. But he says specifically, you know, you leave English shipping the fuck alone and you attack Spanish. He's like, I'm betting on the fact that there's going to be piracy. No shit, right? But Captain Morgan's telling him, yeah, but just understand it's going to be like business as usual when the piracy thing is going on, right? We're not going to be having rules to that shit. He says, you know, I can probably tell the English pirates not to go after English ships. they will do that. He's like, but there are French pirates, man. We do have African pirates. We do have Indian pirates. You know what I'm saying? He's like, we got pirates of all kinds. He's like, so the English pirates will probably totally go along with that. He says, and that is the predominant amount. And he goes, it's mostly British and French when you break it down. He says, but we could do that. And the king says, bet. Sounds good. All right. Well, I dubbed thee the fucking governor of Jamaica. Go home, tell that guy to fuck off. And that's exactly what he does, right? So let's see. Let me see if there's anything else worth reading in here a little bit. Okay, yeah, I forgot this part. So he makes him the governor of England. The governor of England, fucking duh, the governor of Jamaica. And then before he leaves, just as a little extra, in 1674, the fucking King of England knighted Henry Morgan, and that's why he's known now as Sir Henry Morgan. Yeah. Yeah, he fucking knighted him and sent him back to Jamaica as a knight. Morgan spent the rest of his life in Jamaica in Port Royal, obviously a city infamous as the capital of piracy for a long time. And he just spent this time on like politics, his sugar plantations, making rum, drinking rum, and like basically partying with all of his old pirate friends and all the old buccaneers. That's how he spent the rest of his life. Fucking insane. Like amazing. Yeah. He just enjoyed owning his land and making rum and drinking it all day long with his old pirate buddies, man. And then it says in here, it says the exact cause of his death on August 25th, 1688, at age 53 is uncertain. Some sources say tuberculosis. Others cite acute alcoholism. At the time of his death, he was a very wealthy man indeed. Yeah. Oh, and then at the end of this, it actually says, thanks to Esquemeling and his tales of piratical exploits and a brand. Yeah, so they actually thank Esquemeling for a lot of the information on Morgan, which is what we just read. But yeah, pretty crazy. And then in that story, fucking King of Spain starts talking shit. King of England tries to appease him, has him arrested, sent to England. Instead of putting him in a dungeon, puts him in like a nice apartment in the tower, gives him free reign, gives him the good food and a cook and whatever he asks for, keeps him there for a few months, brings him to the palace and just jokes with him, says, I'm supposed to kill you, but I'm going to make you a governor and a knight instead. We're going to piss the Spanish off, but in return, I want you to be the true king of the pirates, and I want you to keep English shipping safe, and I want you to destroy Spanish shipping. Yep. Unreal. Yeah. So I say he died as a wealthy man. That's what it says in that article, but that's what I was telling you anyway, which is, bro, when they left the castle of Chagris, those guys were loaded, bro. John Esquemeling, right? That's the one that wrote his first-hand accounts. We know a bit about him. That dude was fucking loaded. And he started off as a slave. We know where his money came from. Now, he sailed with a lot of different pirate captains and shit like that, and he did some successful runs, but nothing like he did with Captain Morgan. You know what I mean? They nailed fucking huge cities, man. Took the entire towns, lived in the houses, bro, and then ransomed the cities for the last of the gold they had hidden in the jungles. Like, these dudes got fucking paid. And like, one more time for the people in the back. When they left Panama, they left with 175 mules, totally stocked, covered in fucking gold, silver, and jewels and other expensive things, man. And they gave all of the other pirates like $200 a piece, and then sailed off with 3 ships full of fucking treasure, maybe 3.5, 4 ships full of treasure, and then they just split that shit up. And everybody, none of those people you never had to hear about them working again. It didn't happen. You know, John Esquemeling wrote his book. Captain Morgan eventually read that book and sued John Esquemeling. Dude, think about that. Captain Morgan read the book and was like, dude, and he literally said, like, I cannot fucking believe you even wrote this book. Right? He's like, this is bullshit that you even fucking wrote this book. First of all, let's start there. He goes, second, because that's what he says. He says, I take offense to the fact that this book was even written. Straight up. First of all, he's like, this book should have never been written. You shouldn't be telling people stuff like this. The Pirate Kingdom stuff is Pirate Kingdom stuff, right? What happens in Port Royal and Tortuga and out of pirating stays in Port Royal and Tortuga and out of pirating. He's like, you shouldn't be telling people this. I'm offended just by that. He goes, and there's some things in there that I totally disagree with, but that's not what I'm suing you for. Right. And then he tried to make up some stolen valor fucking story, which is fucked up. And then I think it's an accurate way to put it, because he's making up military service, right? He tried to make up military service. And to this day, if you look up information on Captain Morgan, that false story will be in some of the information that you find some places. It's inaccurate, and the proof of that is in these old books when you look at them and they talk about people being sued, and they talk about what it was for. And he says, you used the word Barbados. That was what the lawsuit was. He says that was not fucking true. He goes, I was not kidnapped. And that is true. He was not kidnapped. Right? Esquemeling did use the wrong word, and he did have to change that. But he did not have to put in that fucking Fugazi story where Captain Morgan tried to tie himself into his uncle's military service. And again, you will find that in information, online. You look up Captain Morgan, some of the articles will absolutely tell you, oh, he went to Barbados in this year and he was in the military with his uncle in this year. And it's just not true. What's true is a way cooler story. He was 14. He went down to the dock. He found a ship that was going to Jamaica. And he said, dude, I will fucking 100% go down there and I will sign that contract that says I will work for a few years to pay my way. And then he went and he joined the pirates. I mean, it's a fucking awesome story. And that's what's written down because that's what was true. Nobody was buying that bullshit back then, it surprises me. It really doesn't surprise me, I guess, because it has happened so often in history where somebody will offer an alternate story to something, and just because it existed, enough people have now read it that it becomes a possibility when it never was considered a possibility in the beginning, right? When it happened in the beginning, people knew that it was wrong on its face, but then you fast forward 40 or 50 years after a bunch of people have read that version, and now it becomes a thing that could be possible. This is one of those things, right, where you will find that information just because it existed one time. Somebody was reading through, decided to make it a point in some article, and then it just became a thing after that. But we know the truth. And if you were listening to this, or if you listen to this later, now you know the truth too, of exactly where Captain Morgan came from. And he tried to sue the guy, and he only ended up getting the word changed. Barbados. They had to tell the actual story. But everything else is still in there. Captain Morgan definitely didn't call him a liar when Esquemeling was like, we robbed everybody, bro. He was like, we tore that fucking castle down, set a bunch of shit on fire, made sure they didn't have shit, and then we robbed everything and fucking left. We knew it would take them a while to get back to Jamaica, and they weren't going to do shit when they got there anyway. Fuck them, right? That's what he did, bro. Captain Morgan. It's so Captain Morgan, bro. The guy was born with no fucks. The fact that he sat there, handed those people that money, knowing that it wasn't shit, knowing that they were going to get pissed off. He didn't give a fuck. And he sat there while they talked shit to his face and still didn't give a fuck. He just considered it something he had to get through until he was going to leave with all the money, right? He was like, this is part of it. This is just going to have to be what it is, bro. You know what I mean? He's like, no one's going to touch me. He knew that was, for sure. There would have been a giant war in that place, and Captain Morgan's crew was not to be fucked with. And all those old salty buccaneers that were with him, forget about it. People would have got cut to fucking shreds. And that's exactly why nobody did touch him. Well, they just yelled at him and screamed and talked shit, but You know, out of all those hundreds of pirates, not a single one of them put their fucking hands on Morgan, and he knew they wouldn't. You know, he knew that they would get fucked up on the spot, and they did too. So he sat there and he let them talk shit and call him a thief, and then he got on his fucking ship and hauled ass. What's up, KD? Always good to see you, bro. Hope you're well. Not much, man. We're just wrapping up. We went through the whole raid on Panama tonight, and then did like a little wrap up on Esquemeling, our author rather, Esquemeling, and wrapped up the story with Morgan and where he ended up and all that kind of thing. Oh, forget about it, Mickey. That guy had no fucks, man. The way that, again, like, they would tell him, what is this? Get the fuck out of here with this nonsense. Yeah, this isn't church, dude. This is not even a place for that. You take that shit somewhere else, man. Yeah, that dude was born with no fucks. The way that he would literally find out that like the Spanish were on their way when he was in the middle of robbing some shit, and he just didn't care at all. He literally would be like, oh, you know, not only am I not going to run away from my robbery, not only am I going to not stop robbing, I'm going to send a crew to walk towards you since you're coming. We're going to send, and we're not even going to, you know, like sweat you at all. You have what, 400 or 500 people? Cool. I'm going to send 100 Buccaneers down the road, and I bet you run. And that's exactly what they did. They'd catch that first full volume. It says in every single instance that we've come across the Buccaneers being part of a crew, when they would put one knee down and pull their fucking rifle up, every single time it says that those dudes did not miss, that when they fired their guns, they hit bitches and those people went down, right? Even with those horses and stuff, when they were coming into Panama with the 50 horse and the people they were coming through, they were just tagging the dudes and then killing the horses. Boom, boom. Yeah. And then those foot soldiers were like, fuck this, man. They were getting sniped out too while they were coming down in front of the gate at Panama. But yeah, every single time with the Buccaneers, man, they just snipe everybody straight the fuck out. Oh, man. What a great story. But yeah, this has been good. Yeah, we've got a bunch more episodes, Mandy. Yeah, we've got a lot more to go. Like I said, we've got Dampier for sure. That's what I want to cover, and people are going to freak out at like the connections that guy has to different stories. And again, he was at Panama also, and he was right there shoulder to shoulder with his very good friend John Esquemeling that wrote this book that we've been reading. And when we get to that perspective, it's just amazing. It's so well written, dude. It really puts you like right in it. It's so much more detailed, his version. But yeah, we've got a lot more episodes to go, Mandy. We've got that Dampier's work. We've got Lionel Wafer's story. And then we've got several more pirate tales, straight up pirate tales. And we'll work into the later years too. We'll run into like some of the other people, you know, like your Blackbeards and stuff like that. You know, we actually have like the trial manuscripts and like charges and stuff like that for the crew of Blackbeard's ship. We know exactly how that went down, who survived. They had to go to court. These people, you know what I mean? They had snitches, the whole thing. So Blackbeard stuff is like really well known. You talk about like firsthand accounts of stuff. It's like you literally had several survivors at the end of Blackbeard's run. And they were all super fucking pissed off at Blackbeard when it all went down. So like a lot of them just fucking flipped and told their whole stories in court. So you want to talk about firsthand accounts of like other pirates, you know, we've got plenty to go. all the biggest ones, like even the pirates off of Madagascar, like then those are the richest prizes ever taken. You know, you want to talk about another amazing, literally, we can't even like scratch the surface on this tonight. Like, but an amazing fucking pirate kingdom. Oh my god, dude! Off the coast of Madagascar, forget about it. I can't even wait till we get into all that. Those prizes there that they took, uh, some of the richest ships to have ever been robbed in the history of man, and hands down the richest prizes ever taken by any pirates anywhere in the world were off the coast of Madagascar. They had an amazing pirate kingdom there. There's like some documentary series and stuff. Let's put it this way: they're the pirate ships that are still sunk off of this small island off the coast of Madagascar. The stuff that was in them, like the rare china and like the plates and stuff like that, the antiques and things that were in them that the pirates didn't take when they sunk their vessels, fucking priceless. And there was so much of it that even to this day, like there's shards of it that wash up on the beach out of these wrecks. You know, like it's literally in the sand of these beaches that are around the wrecks in this bay. It's fucking crazy. But yeah, hands down, the richest prizes ever taken were off the coast of Madagascar. That's even where like the famous Captain Kidd, even though he was a fucking mook, you know, kind of a beta, kind of an idiot. But we'll get into that too. You know, again, there's all kinds of court transcripts and stuff like that for Captain Kidd's shit too. There is no fucking Captain Kidd's treasure. And anybody that reads the whole thing and goes through it all and sees how it all actually went down step by step from the people that were there, at the end of it, everybody I know that's ever written, you see it. There's just not any treasure to be found. It was all based on when he buried some stuff on this little island that a guy owned, just to kind of keep it safe for him while he was trying to save his ass, writing letters back and forth. You know, trying to blame absolutely everything on his crew. And at first, that's kind of true. You know, he would have got mutinied on. They probably would have killed him, thrown him in the ocean. You know, the crew that he got a hold of in the beginning was mutinous to begin with. They were all just like, and they warned him too. He put together the crew so fast. He was just grabbing like all these random, like rough motherfuckers at the port to be in his crew, and people were warning him like, yo man, you're gonna fuck around and get the wrong group of people on your boat and they're just gonna take the shit and go pirating. And that's exactly what happened, really. He just chose to go along with it at first, and then when he started seeing some of the money at the end, he started devising like their exit plan. But at first his guys were just like, bro, join the crew and stay the captain, or we can just toss you overboard and vote in a new one. You know, pretty much that's how that shit went down. But we're going to get into all of that stuff. Like I said, we've got Dampier to go. We've got Lionel Wafer to go. And we've got a lot of other pirates to go through that we have all that kind of firsthand accounts from. Because that's all the ones I'm doing is the ones that have firsthand accounts that we can really go through. Now, the you know, that are authentic. Not like any kind of weird story time shit. But the next episode we do, I'm going to start off with the prints that come from these old books, right? The illustrations. So we'll go through those, and then we'll go through and take a look at all of these locations, you know, that like Puerto de Principe, where, because I'll look up all this stuff and find pictures for us to look at these cities that the pirates took, and where, you know, like the Cow Island, Isla de la Vaca. I'll make sure I have pictures of that. All of it. Yeah. St. Catherine, Chagres, Panama, the old Panama that's burnt to shit that people go and see. Yeah. So like the next episode, the very first part of it, that I think that's what we'll do. We'll go through the pictures of all the places that we've been so far in the story. You know, we'll take a look at, you know, Tortuga and all that kind of stuff. And then we'll jump into our next, pirate tale. I'm not sure exactly which one we'll start with next. It might be Dampier. I might do that one next. If not, I'll figure it out. We'll do another one next week. I've been trying to do one of these a week. Today happened to be the day. It's never a guaranteed day. We'll see what happens. But in either case, I appreciate everybody coming through. I hope everybody enjoyed the show. I hope everybody's enjoying the series so far. Anybody that hears this later, this is episode 5. If you haven't heard the beginning episodes, I encourage you to do so. Hit the like button for the algorithm gods. You know, seems to make the algorithm gods happy, and tell other people that are already subscribed to this channel that this show existed. Imagine that. But yeah, that's how YouTube decides how many of your own friends they're willing to tell you how to show, more people that like it, leave a comment and all that kind of stuff. So I appreciate it if you do, if you're listening to this now or if you hear this later. And in either case, I will see you guys next week. Anybody that knows about the Skull Bro Show, I will see you on Friday. Everybody be safe.